Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Sarutobi treats Naruto as his son part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. So it's settled, Hashirama Senju said calmly while signing his name across the bottom of the scroll. The shine in his eyes almost seemed to forcefully calm the people around him. As the leader of the Senju clan, I ask that you, Madara Uchiha, please sign this treaty and bring peace and strength to our clans. Madara's eyes blazed as he glared at the man. After everything he had been through, even his own people turned to Hashirama's side, leaving him to stand alone. You have a way of turning even a loyal dog against his master, Hashirama. You know as well as I that the Uchiha and Senju are like oil and water, they'll never mix, even with your strange ability to change people. Madara, understand this isn't just for our people, it's for the whole world to learn from our example. There's no more bloodshed needed when peace can be achieved finally. Why fight when we can grow stronger to protect the both of our clans? Right now I am protecting my clan, Madara yelled. All eyes were now on him as he stood across from the Senju leader. Everything I've done was for my people, everything my brother sacrificed was for our people, and look at them. They kissed the miserable soil you walk on. He yelled, only to see Hashirama's second in command and loyal brother Tobirama step forward. Madara, that's enough, you're embarrassing your name and your brothers. This is a time where we should come together and sign this scroll. If you don't do it, someone else will, and since your brother isn't with us, don't you dare bring him into this, Madara said in a low tone, followed by a gust of wind blowing past them. Tobirama glared at the man, but felt his brother's arm raise across his chest. If I may, a man with light red hair stepped forth. On his armor was the Senju clan emblem. His eyes were dark blue with a green tint to them, and on his back was a long spear. Hashirama-sama, in a way I agree with the Uchiha. Yours, Tobirama said, only to see Hashirama's take a step forward, cutting his sentence short. Care to explain why peace is such a troublesome thing? What have we been fighting for all our lives? Too much blood has been spilt by these men. It's not like this is the first time we have tried to stop our rivalry. Each time we approached them, all we got in return was cries for battle. The Uchiha are, like Madara said, a warrior clan, and I will have no part in this, the man said, followed by a large group splitting from the Senju to his back. Madara looked at them in amazement before looking back to Hashirama, who glanced at the ground. It's nothing personal, sir, it's just in my blood as it is in you and your brothers. I always looked up to you as our leader, and I still do, but we have families to think about, and I will not let my son be raised alongside these so-called men and their demonic eyes. The group turned their backs from everyone and began walking towards the wilds. Madara noticed most of them held blue spears on their backs and knew they were elite warriors from the Senju clan. He would know from all of the battles they've shared. Farewell then, old friends, the kind Senju leader said, earning shocked look from his brother and several others. We're letting them leave? But brother, they could. They wouldn't. You know that man as well as I do. He has a good heart, and is doing what he feels is right for his family and friends, just as I am. The man spoke while looking back to Madara. Now please, Madara, if you do not sign, I will get someone who will. Time passed and other clans learned of the joining of the two strong clans, and like Hashirama predicted, they too began to come together, but no, he would take things to another level. He spoke of creating the first hidden village. Kanehagakura no Sato, the Senju and Uchiha both have one thing that drives them, that, my friends, is the will of fire. Hashirama called out to the people, who all continued to love him except for Madara, whose temper only continued to grow. But the day the village chose their first leader, their Hokage, was the day everything Madara thought he had was lost. Madara's followers soon fell prey to the Hokage's words and one by one walked away from the fallen Uchiha leader. So you'll all leave? What about our clan? We deserve to be the leaders of this village, not them, he screamed as they slowly left him. If only he was like Hashirama with his words, but he wasn't. We're warriors, my brother was a warrior, we deserve power, we deserve honor. You're power hungry, Madara, one of the men said before walking out. How could this have happened to him? He and his clan had it all. He was the most powerful. No, Madara growled, I am the most powerful. I'll take the seat as Hokage if I have to. And he tried, but failed. Even with his ability to control the tailed beasts, even with the power of the nine-tailed fox, he had lost, and the world thought him to be dead, but he wasn't. Hashirama gave his life to win the battle that would be known as the Valley of the End, and his brother was given the seat as the second Hokage, and once again wronged Madara's clan in doing so. The second Hokage gave the Uchiha the noble duty of being Konoha's elite police force, but Madara knew the secret behind that. They were keeping tabs on the clan. The Uchiha were turned from honorable warriors to powerless dogs with no political power. The council controlled their every move. Even with the clan heads in the council, the Uchiha still had no power. In the condition the Senju leader had left Madara in, he couldn't stand against his brother, so he fled to the east, where he learned more of what Hashirama had been doing. He gave a tailed beast to each village as a peace offering or an act of good faith. The current village Madara walked through was known to have the three-tails beast within it, and it was sealed into a young boy named Yagura. Madara felt a chill run up his spine as he smiled to himself. He walked to one of the shops of the village known as Kirigakura no Sato. On a table was a mask with black flames across it, and a single hole in it. He lifted it and placed it over his face. "Do you like that piece, sir?" the shopkeeper asked, earning a nod from Madara. "It's one of the old hunter masks from the wars. Those warriors in particular were known to be devious in nature but very intelligent. Their tactical advantages in battle were one of a kind." "Is that so?" Madara asked before pausing. "How much is it?" he asked as the clerk turned his back and grabbed a scroll. "It's about 20, but the man stopped while turning around to see Madara nowhere in sight. "It'll start a few wars, only this time I'll wait. Hashirama wanted peace, but I won't allow it. It will corrupt the East and spread through the world, bringing forth the second great ninja war, but first I need an army." It took many years for Madara's plan to come into play, but after waiting so many years he finally managed to get into the Kiri stronghold and take the position as Mizukage, and he did it with good timing. He had intelligence on the second Hokage and his team on a mission near his territory. If he couldn't end the man's life, his new force of hunter shinobi would be more than enough to handle them all. Little did he know the man would give his life and name one of the Sarutobi clan as the third Hokage. Restart here. Today was the day Madara would meet with his council members. The man was dressed in the kage robes and hat that shadowed his face, showing only his long raven hair hanging over his shoulders. The room was large and meant for royalty. He could tell to the left of the room the main branches of the village sat together, and on the right there seemed to be a few civilians. In the center several elderly men and women sat smiling at him. "Greetings, Mizukage-sama," the speaker of the group said while standing and gesturing him to sit. He said nothing and took his chair. He was interested in hearing why he was there, and what he would learn as the Mizukage. He already knew a great deal about the village and how it was run, but there were small details he couldn't figure out. Like where they got the extra funding and some of their missions. "We have called you here today to tell you all the secrets of our village so that you may be prepared for whatever is in our future," he said, only to hear another voice overpower his own. "Please, can we hurry this along? We swordsmen don't have all day," a man with long black hair said, only to see the Mizukage's head turn in the voice's direction. There sat 4 men sitting together and glaring back at the Mizukage. They, unlike the others, weren't as welcoming to their new mysterious leader. "I'm catching a few unwanted vibe from your little group. May I ask your names?" Madara asked, only to see the long-hair man smirk. At his back 2 blades crossed his back. "My name is Raiga Kurosaki of the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist," he said, only to feel a hand grip his shoulder tightly and pull him back down into his seat. He looked back to the man at his right, only to let out a sigh and nod back at him. He stood towering over the group and looked over to their new leader. "I apologize for my comrade's loud mouth, Mizukage-sama. He is a lover of battle, and we could be on missions at the moment, which seems to be getting to him," the man explained, earning a nod from Madara. "I am Kisame Hashigaki, also known as the Monster of the Hidden Mist." Madara now got a good look at the man. His skin was blue and his facial features were like a shark's. "To my right is Mangetsu Hozuki, and this is Kisame," was interrupted by a tall man wielding a blade taller than himself. He stood and began walking to the door with his back turned to the Mizukage and council. "Zabuza," Kisame said in a mellow tone, only to see him hold his hand up. "I don't trust him. We know nothing about him, so don't expect me to put my neck out for some nobody." Madara felt his mouth curve as he looked at Zabuza walk away. He knew all about the skilled boy. "Your name is Zabuza Momochi, also known as the demon hidden in the bloody mist. You reached Umbu at age 16 before being placed in your rank right now. People call you a prodigy among your class mainly because you killed all 100 of your classmates, thus ending our village's traditional graduating ritual. How does it feel to be 17 years old, and the youngest man among the swordsmen of Kiri?" Madara paused as Zabuza stopped and glanced back at the man. "Does it frustrate you, Zabuza-kun? That I know everything about you, and yet you know nothing about me?" Madara continued, only to see the man walk through the door, letting it close behind him. Kisame seemed to be smiling at the Mizukage as he turned back around in his seat. He liked him, unlike the last Mizukage who everyone seemed to love. He was too weak. "So is there something you were supposed to tell me about?" Madara asked the speaker of the council, who nodded. Kisame took his seat while glaring at Raiga to keep his mouth shut. "The world is unknown about many things our village holds secret, mainly because only we know this land and can move through its mists freely, as well as its whirlpools." The man paused, surprised that there was no response from the man. "Have you ever noticed anything strange about our village? The funding we get, the missions that are sent to use?" "I've actually thought into that a bit, but I always draw a blank. Care to fill me in?" Madara asked calmly, even though the man was starting to annoy him. Madara watched as 2 men walked in holding a large scroll with 2 names: Kirigakura and Yuzugakura. This is the scroll signed a few years after the villages were formed. The first Mizukage came across another clan of shinobi who had a village just as magnificent as our own. They said they would remain hidden from the world but didn't want any territorial trouble with Kiri, so they asked that there be a treaty signed between the two. We kept each other safe over the years and even traded missions, and a few shinobi joined our ranks, the man said, only to see Madara stand and begin to walk towards the man. He opened the scroll quickly and began reading over the names. It can't be, he thought before looking back to the elderly man. What is their weapon of choice, he said, a bit aggravated. The old man babbled a bit before answering, I believe they trained in both blade and spear, sir, but why does that matter? Because you've allied our village with Konoha spies. How foolish, Madara mumbled, already having thought of a way to destroy this treaty. He didn't care if he ripped New Army in half, he would not lend any aid to a Senju village. But how would you know something like that, my lord? He asked, only to see Kisame stand while smiling. Why would you question our Mizukage on something so serious? But these people have been nothing but kind to you over the years, the speaker argued, along with most of the civilian council. He speaks the truth, Kisame. I'm a bit shocked that you would side with this man, Mangetsu said while standing along with Raiga. I love battle, but to go against people that have helped you for so long would be disrespectful. They're a sister to our village, it makes them our family, Raiga said swiftly. Zabuza would agree, as well would the others. What does that matter, Madara said while glaring at the two men. This is our village, and we shared our secrets with Konoha spies. Those spear-wielding men are related to the first and second Hokage, if I'm right about this. We could be in danger of attack. This is ridiculous, the speaker of the council said, only to feel Madara's hand stretch out and grip his neck. He slowly pulled him from the floor while glaring up at him from the shadows. The hat said over his face, you are foolish, old man. Your last leader was weak, and I refuse to be such a thing, and I refuse to have someone like you speak for the people and this council. A loud snap filled the room as his neck broke, leaving his limp body. Handing from Madara's hand the Uchiha dropped the man's limp body to the ground and looked down to the scroll. He held it up in its hand and let out a small burning breath to catch flame to the treaty. We will not be fooled by Konoha. They wanted us to think we were strong and safe, but in truth we are weaker than we have ever been. Push any merchants of this Uzumaki clan out of my village. If they fight back, kill them. And history tells itself, Madara's reign over Kiri is one to be remembered. The clans around Kiri felt that they were in danger and began to flee to Yuzugakura, along with the swordsmen of the mist, except for Kisame, who stayed loyal to the Mizukage. Kiri was split into two factions, those loyal to the swordsmen and those loyal to the Mizukage. The Uzumaki joined sides with the swordsmen and their army and prepared for battle, only to get word of the Mizukage's ace in the hole. Boy, Madara said while looking down at the young man before him. He removed his hat, revealing closed eyes. As he crouched down, suddenly his eyes shot open and he glared into his eyes. Yugura's felt his body tense as sweat dripped from his chin. You will go and destroy every last person in the village. Use your powers like I have told you before and destroy them. Chakra began to encase the boy's body before Madara shut his eyes and placed the hat back over his head. Now go. What? Zabuza yelled while standing up in the room. A massager had run into the Yuzukage's meeting room and handed him a letter. What is it, Zabuza? Mangetsu asked, only to see the man hand him the paper. He read over it only to let out a sigh. The Mizukage is getting desperate. He's sent his entire army our way, and it's being led by Yugura. The Yuzukage remained silent while listening to the men talk. What will we do? We should be able to push them back, but lately Yugura has been more powerful for some reason. As if something was controlling his beast. You may be right about that, but what are we going to do? If we stand and fight, our forces will take a great hit. We might not be able to make our move, Raiga said, only to see the Yuzukage stand. You and your men will go around their forces with a few of our sailors. We will evacuate our villagers to the western shores where they will stay until it is safe. Me and my men will stand and fight while you force your way into the heart of Kiri and rid the world of the Mizukage. This is what must be done, they said, only to see all 6 of the swordsmen look up at the orange-haired man. He looked to the door to see his young son ready for battle, and behind him his son's lovely wife stood alongside his granddaughter Kushina. Daddy's going to stay with Grandpa? But I want to stay too, she said, only to see both the men smile over at her young Kushina. You're a strong young girl, but I need to make sure our people are safe. You'll go to shore with your mother and let me and Grandpa fight. Are you sure about this? Zabuza asked, earning a nod from the older man. Me and my people at one time have stood against the Uchiha in battle. Your Mizukage knows that, and he knows our origin, which frightens me a bit, but we will stand and fight nonetheless. You and your men must not fail, or our lives will be lost for nothing. The younger orange-haired man looked over to Kushina, who was walking away with his lovely orange-haired wife. They looked so much alike. We won't fail, Mangetsu said while popping his neck, and Kisame-sensei is mine. Kushina could see the flames through the mist along with loud beast-like shouts coming from the village. She let out a small cry while thinking of her father, and turned to see her mother smiling and holding her arms down at her. It's all right, child, she said softly. We are strong people. When I was younger, my mother told stories of a man whose people were a rivalry in blood to us. One day she heard him say his people were a warrior clan, and we were not. He was right and wrong when he said that. We are lovers, my dear, not fighters, but when it comes to what we love, we will fight for it no matter what the chances are, she said, earning a smirk from Kushina like Daddy and Grandpa are. She said only to see her smile and nod. They love yous with all their hearts, and they love these people and the land that is ours. They will do whatever it takes to make sure we can go back to it, just as you will do one day. Madara could hear the doors through his tower crashing open one after the other. He sat in the council room surrounded by the bodies of his council, which he wasted no time in killing once he had heard the news. His plans had once again been spoiled by the damned Senju, but he wouldn't die. My lord, Kisame said, walking from the shadows covered in blood that didn't belong to him. His blade was unwrapped, which was a surprise to the Uchiha. Kisame, why are you still here? You should be fleeing and hiding out for a while, he said calmly. I ran into Mangetsu. He wasn't as understanding as I hoped he would be. Sir Jetsu won't be too pleased about it, Kisame said before walking away. Awaits for you to call for me. Until then, farewell. With that, Kisame vanished into the shadows in time to avoid the doors crashing open. Standing in the door were the swordsmen with many of their followers at their back. Zabuza was the first to charge towards the Mizukage, who didn't seem to move. He pulled one of his smaller katanas out and sliced at the man, only to see him move suddenly, but it was a foolish move. Several blades pierced his back as he fell to his knees. The men pulled their blades back. His hate fell from his head as he looked up to Zabuza and caught his eyes. Zabuza swung his blade down on the man, killing the man in front of everyone. The room roared with the cheers of the men as Zabuza kicked his body away and signaled a group of hunters to take his body away and destroy it. It was done, and Kiri was once again in need of a leader. By the time the swordsmen returned to the hidden whirlpool, it was in flames. The villagers still waited at the shores, but what Zabuza and the others found was shocking. The Uzukage lay bleeding in the lap of his son, who sat panting with the sleeping body of Yugura at his side. The boy passed out when we battled, which I'm thankful for, but my father and many of our shinobi are dead. I sent the survivors to get the villagers and make sure they're safe. We'll be relocating after this, he said, earning a nod from one of the swordsmen. I'm sorry for your loss, Uzumaki, Zabuza said, earning a nod from the man. Very well, we will take him with you, the swordsman said while lifting the younger boy from the ground. We are having to pull together a new council. The Mizukage killed them all, even the clan heads are dead, which shocks yous all. They were not in any way pushovers. What of the Mizukage's body? The Uzukage asked. Destroyed. I let the hunters take him. He's on his way to hell right about now, Zabuza said while turning away. We're keeping what happened here to ourselves. The world will never know of your existence. The Kage nodded while standing with the help of his spear. Agreed, and your people will not be seeing use for a very long time. When Yugura finally awoke, his head was cleared of the strange control that had held him. The new council chooses him to be their next Kage, and he accepts it, but despite all they had been through, it didn't end. Yugura, after building a hate for the Sharingan, began to hate all bloodlines outside of his village, and thus the age of the blood purging began. The swordsmen disbanded and went their separate ways, and the Uzumaki family was never known or heard of since then. Time passed, and the next great ninja war was started. Zabuza met young Haku and takes him in under his wing to use him as the ultimate shinobi tool. After which he tries to rid the world once again of a Mizukage, but failed and vanishes from the world with Haku. In Konoha, a name raises throughout the ranks along with the three legendary Sannin. His name was Minato Namikaze, and he alone was one of the deciding factors of the ending of the war, and was now the youngest Hokage in history, taking the place of Sarutobi as the Yandame Hokage. But in his world was a secret more precious than any scroll in Konoha. Her name was Kushina, and she was with child. Slowing things down a bit. The three bent with each breath taken by the crimson beast as it slowly stomped over the forest. Its eyes burned with uncontrollable rage, and its mouth dripped with saliva as it looked in the distance. Konoha, the beast thought to itself before taking another step. He would be there in one day. Sensei, a tall blonde man, said softly while knocking on the door of his master's home in Konoha. He glanced back, smiling at the beautiful woman at his side. Her belly was round and seemed like it would burst at any time. She smiled at him and looked to the book in his hand. You think he'll be exited, Minato-kun? She asked, earning a wide smile from the man, a smile that made her skin tingle. I'm not sure, but knowing him, he'll have something perverted to say about it, Minato said before taking her hand in his and holding it tightly. He'll most likely pick on me for being so fat, she said, earning a sigh from the man as he knocked again. Kushina-chan. You're not fat, you're amazing and beautiful, he said, still smiling. I only hope our boy's going to be so lucky and find someone like his dad. We can only hope. A voice came from the other side of the door before it slid open, revealing the pure white hair and the short red marks sliding underneath his eyes. How long have you been there? Minato asked, earning a toothy smile from the man. Oh, long enough to know you're expecting me to say a few perverted things today. I promise not to disappoint. Kushina flashed a smile at the old man, earning a raised eyebrow from him, followed by a knuckle coming down on his head. Minato seemed to shrink into a ball in the distance as the woman let out her raging hormones. "Bring it, old man. Do not mess with me," she yelled, earning a constant laugh from the man as he held his hands up in his defense. I never knew how attractive and angry. Sensei. Minato broke his concentration and stopped his words while taking back Kushina's hand and sighing, "We came to tell you something, so can you try and not get yourself killed? The last thing we need is Kushina going to get Tsunade." Jiraiya felt his blood go cold while picturing Tsunade's fists flying around. "Well, come in then, kiddo, get some tea." Minato sat at the table as Kushina stood looking out the slide-open door at the beautiful garden. Being a sage helps knowing what nature wants. I once told Minato that using natural chakra was more than just getting the strength of it, but knowing it, understanding it, Jiraiya said while walking towards them with a plate of cups. Kushina smiled and nodded before taking a cup and smelling the warm liquid. Her eyes closed as the aroma of the fresh air and the steam of the tea filled her thoughts. "You always make a good brew, don't you?" she asked, earning a nod from the man. He took a seat across from Minato and got comfortable before taking a drink. "So kid, what's this all about? I know you didn't come here for my tea and good looks, even though I was going to come see you after I rested up. I just got back after all." Jiraiya paused while thinking of the 3 young shinobi he had trained before looking back up to Minato. "So spill it," the older man said, only to see Minato smile over at him and raise the book in his hand. "Tales of a Gutsy Ninja," Minato said softly before pausing, earning a blank look from his teacher. "After you sent me a copy of your book, I couldn't stop reading it until it was done, and after I finished it, me and Kushina both came to a conclusion." Minato paused while opening the book to the last page where a word was underlined and slid it across the table. Jiraiya lifted it up and read what was underlined before looking back up at the man, only to see Kushina standing by his side holding her belly. "Naruto?" Jiraiya said, earning a nod from Minato. "That's right, sensei, we've decided to name him after your character. When he's born, his name will be Naruto Namikaze." Jiraiya's eyes went round with shock as they smiled over at him. "Are you sure? I mean, really?" Jiraiya said in a mumble before looking back down at the book. "When I was writing this book, I had put you in the place of the main character." Minato remained looking at his sensei as he spoke. "The troubled life you've lived through, constantly dodging shinobi assassins, your attitude, even your life." "But that's now how I read it, sensei," Minato said, catching his attention. Jiraiya looked up at his blue eyes and could see the happiness in them. "I picture a man with the pride you have, the determination I have, and the attitude and heart of Kushina. I pictured Naruto Namikaze." Fire temple, we've got to alarm Konoha!" a monk yelled while dodging a huge hunk of stone falling from the sky along with huge trees and flames. In his hand was a scroll with the head monk seal wrapped around it. It would go directly to the Hokage. The monk came to a sliding stop at the massager Hawk's room and looked to see all but one had flown out through a huge hole in the wall. The monk stumbled at first as the ground shook again, followed by a bone-shacking roar filling the air. He leaned against the wall before placing the scroll in the Hawk's bag and lifting it from his arm. "Go to Konoha! Get the massage to the Hokage! They must be warned!" And with that, the hawk opened its wings and flew from the hole in the wall. The monk fell to his knees before wincing in pain and looking to his stomach to see a shard of sharp wood sticking in it. He hadn't even noticed it. "At least they'll know the QB's coming." Minato sighed while sitting in his office. Dealing with Jiraiya was easy when it was just he and him alone, but put a pregnant Kushina in the mix, and it made it worse than having Tsunade, especially when she had her spear in arm's reach. He quickly created a few clones and watched them do the paperwork while he sat at the window and looked over the village. In the distance, he noticed a bird flying pretty fast for its small size, and then he saw the bracelet on its leg and raised an eyebrow. He was expecting it to turn and head to a scouting tower, but it headed towards the mansion. He opened the window and held his arm out for the bird to land. He quickly pulled the scroll from its pack and noticed the seal on it, a blood seal, he thought before biting his thumb and smearing it across the seal. In a puff of smoke it opened. He sent a clone to get Jiraiya as an umbu appeared from the shadows. "Sir, is everything alright?" he asked, only to see Minato reading down the scroll. He noticed blood on it, and cursed silently before reaching the end and plopping down in his seat. "This is impossible," Minato mumbled to himself while looking down at the finally few words. What could cause such a force to? "Sir," the umbu captain yelled, catching his attention. He looked up to see Kakashi standing before him. "What's wrong?" "Call back all the shinobi, everyone last on, and get them to the village now and start evacuations," he yelled, only to see Jiraiya and Sarutobi walk in, hearing him shout. "What's going on?" Jiraiya yelled. "Your clone's freaking out." Minato opened his desk and pulled out a scroll and put it on the table. "Send alerts to the surrounding smaller villages. Tell them to head out of the path of it," he said to Kakashi before opening the scroll and spreading blood across it and throwing it out the window. In a huge puff of smoke, a large toad appeared in battle armor looking through the window. Jiraiya gawked for a moment as he listened. You called? The toad asked. I need every boss summons to be ready if I call for them. Can you do that for me? He asked, only to see the toad nod, but for what reason? Minato, Jiraiya said with worry in his voice. What's going on? Minato lifted the scroll in his hand and tossed it to the older men, who read over to and stopped. It can't be. That's right, the fire temple has fallen. The Kyuubi is coming to Konoha and destroying everything in its way. Minato stood in his home grabbing all his scrolls and ninja tools while explaining things to Kushina, but he didn't want to bring up the Kyuubi. You'll go with the civilians, and that's final, Minato said while looking down at Kushina, who looked up at him with pain in her eyes. She remembered the last time she was told to leave with the villagers was by her father, and she didn't want to feel like that again, especially when she's due at any second to start her birthing process. Minato Namikaze! Kushina screamed, interrupting him and gripping his shirt, pulling his face close to his. I'm stressed. I'm having a hot flash. And I'm pregnant. If you think I'm having our child in the woods, you're out of your damn mind. Do you understand me? Usually this would work on the sarcastic and easygoing man, but he stared down at her with a stone expression. You're going, and that's final. The village isn't safe, and I won't have you both put in danger. What could be so dangerous that Konoha and the strongest Hokage in history are so scared of? She yelled, only to see the man grip her cheeks in his hands and look deep into her eyes. Their usual shine was clouded with his tactical mind trying to work out a plan. Baby, he said softly as his expression went blank. He never said that unless it was serious, but what could it be? She mumbled while feeling a small rush of fear in her gut. I just want to know you and Naruto will be safe. Tsunade's even going to be with the civilians in case anything happens. She'll be able to deliver him if it happens, he said before giving a faint smile and kissing her soft lips. She broke the kiss while feeling the fearsome spike of pain in her gut, and looked down only to feel water running down her leg. Minato felt hands tighten around his arms, and looked down only to share the same expression. You've got to be kidding me, he mumbled while helping hold Kushina up. He's coming, she said with a soft smile. Minato, it's time. No, it's not. We've got to get you out of the village, he yelled before pulling her into his arms like a bride and ran out the door. What do you mean? Take me to a hospital, she yelled only to see the same stone look on his face. Kushina. The village won't be here after nightfall. The Kyuubi is on a rampage and is heading straight for use. It already hit the fire temple and destroyed it this morning. Jiraiya stood ready in the office only to see the door kick open, revealing Minato holding Kushina in his arms as she let out a shout of pain. She was gripping his shirt tightly, and her jaw was flexed as her shouts seethed through her clenched teeth. What's going on? Jiraiya yelled only to see Minato's eyes with a scattered gaze in them. He doesn't know what to do, Jiraiya said while pulling a chair out. Put her down. Is she going into labor? Jiraiya asked only to see him nod while putting her down. Jiraiya stayed calm while taking her hand and gripping it tightly. Take deep breaths, Kushina, he said as she nodded her head and fought back tears. Jiraiya said as a man appeared from the shadows. Yes, Jiraiya-sama. Get Tsunade here this second and tell Shizen to have a hospital room ready for a delivery, he ordered, followed by the man nodding and vanishing from the room. Minato's eyes fluttered as he looked at Jiraiya, but was answered with another glare from Jiraiya before he looked down to her. It would be foolish to deliver the baby in the wild. Hopefully she has it before the Kyuubi arrives. We have the Uchiha preparing along with the Umbu. Our genin teams being placed in teams of 6 commanded by one Jounin, Jiraiya said as Minato passed back and forth, still trying to think of a solution. There is no other way. I can see it in your eyes, kiddo, but you've got to calm down. This is just like when Obito died. There's no going back now. But I don't know what to do, sensei. I'm not scared for myself, I'm scared for my family. I won't let them die. And neither will I. This is exactly why you must calm yourself, Jiraiya yelled, finally catching the man off guard, followed by him kneeling down next to Kushina and looking into her eyes. They were filled with tears and fear. Everything's going to be alright, he said while smiling at her. But what if? No, Minato said calmly, you and our son will be fine, I promise, and you know how I am with promises, he said, earning a smile from the women as she nodded. I trust you, but please be careful. At that time the door flew open, revealing Tsunade and Sarutobi. Get her to the hospital now. Sarutobi sat in the hall with Jiraiya, who seemed to thinking of something that wasn't too pleasant. What's on your mind, he asked, only to feel the building shaking a bit, but Jiraiya didn't even move. I think Jiraiya paused while it shook again. Only this time the screams of a newborn filled the halls. I know what Minato's was considering when he was having scattered thoughts, sensei. Sarutobi stood in his battle armor before looking down at Jiraiya, as do I, but we won't let that happen. If it comes to that, it should be you or I who does it. Jiraiya remembered the look in his eyes and stood seeing him step from the room holding a crying blonde baby covered in a cloth. His face was lit with tears and a smile. As he looked down at the child, Jiraiya's expression grew softer and softer. As he looked at the child Naruto, he said to himself, "He looks just like me," Minato said, laughing a bit. "It's my boy." "That it is, my kiddo, that it is," Jiraiya said, placing a hand on his arm. "Let Kushina take care of him, now we have to deal with the Kyuubi." Jiraiya put his arm around Minato and walked him slowly into the room where Kushina sat smiling at the group. "He's beautiful," she said while looking to Minato, who was crying. "He's your son, our baby boy Naruto." Sarutobi turned his back on them and walked into the hall, tears flowing from his eyes. He had a bad feeling about this all. "Watch over him, he'll be back when it's all over. Tsunade, you should take them up to the civilian shelter. The Kyuubi got here sooner than we expected, and I'm sure the Umbu are already having trouble with him. They'll fall back to the Uchiha soon." She nodded before looking up at Jiraiya, who nodded at her. "Be careful, will you? You know how I hate blood." "I know," Jiraiya said while smiling. "Just take care of them." She nodded while Jiraiya walked from the room. Minato leaned down and kissed Naruto's head as he cried out, and then Kushina's lips. "I love you," he said softly. "I love you too, please be careful." Jiraiya stood alongside his sensei and student on the wall of Konoha lined with Uchiha. As they quickly made several hand signs, the Kyuubi slowly made his way towards them. "Let's do this, boys," Sarutobi yelled while biting his thumb along with Minato and Jiraiya summoning jutsu. They yelled, followed by smoke covering the village. As it cleared, it showed 3 great toads dressed for battle except for the toad Minato stood on. "Where's your armor at, Gamma?" he yelled, only to hear the toad grunt. "I don't need it, kid. In a fight with the Kyuubi, if we take a hit we might as well be done for, even with the armor. This way you'll be faster." "Oh great, you guys actually listen to this nut," he yelled to the other toads, who simply shrugged and drew their blades. "Thank you for the toad, Jiraiya," Sarutobi yelled while standing atop the summoned beast. At his side was a large monkey dressed in battle armor. "No problem, sensei, make sure you obey his ever command, understood?" the toad sage asked, earning a nod from the toad. Minato looked back at the Uchiha, who seemed to be done with their hand signs. "Uchiha ready. On my mark, release Kanton Jutsu's toads ready oil. Sarutobi-sama, mind giving use a little dragon's breath with it?" "No problem. You'll even have our friend here help you add a little wind to the mixture," he said while nodding his head towards his beast summons, who simple smirked. The Kyuubi glared at them while growling, only to see the toads' mouths grow full of something now. Minato screamed as the bosses hit their guts, sending oil flying through the air towards the Kyuubi. Sarutobi made several hand signs before slamming his hands together. The ground in front of them began to rise like a second wall. He then threw several more blinding hand signs together before making several more. He took a deep breath while closing his eyes and then opened them while releasing his breath. The night seemed to light as his flames touched the oil. "Wind!" Minato yelled while holding his hands out with a loud shout. A gust shot from his hands, wrapping around the flames. "Uchiha now!" Several screamed, filled the air. Kanton, it screamed, "Fireball Jutsu!" The flames shot out like missions towards the crimson beast, followed by liquid fire falling onto the beast like a tidal wave. Smoke filled the air as the Kyuubi allowed the flames to hit him. The heat filling the air was enough to black out the image of what happened to the fox. All they could do was wait. "The Kyuubi is a fire creature," Minato said in his mind. Damn. It's got to work." The steam began to clear, only to reveal the Kyuubi's massive tails lashing out at the flames, almost putting them out completely, leaving only to burning oil. "Damn it," Jiraiya cursed, only to see Minato fall into a sitting position on Gamma's head. "What is it, boy?" Sarutobi yelled, only to see that he was actually smile. He looked up to Jiraiya with a different look in his eyes, a clear look like he knew what had to be done truly. "Sensei, Naruto is the only way," he said, getting a shocked look from both Sarutobi and Jiraiya. "I'll seal his ing inside of Naruto, but Sensei, I'll need your help with the second part. One need a toad key." Minato paused. "We'll seal his yang in it." "No! It will kill you! Let one of you do it!" Sarutobi yelled, only to see Minato shaking his head. "No, I'm the only one who can get close enough to him. Even in your sage mode, Sensei Kyuubi would crush you and Sarutobi-sama. Let's face it, you've gotten old," Minato said, shining a small sad smile. "Then seal it inside of one of yous. Not your newborn," Jiraiya yelled, only to see him shake his head. "You know I can't do that, Sensei. His yang will need to adapt to a chakra network Naruto's hasn't yet developed, so it will bend to the Kyuubi's, making a perfect container for it. He will be a hero," Minato said softly while looking down to Gamma. "Please, old friend, hold him off until I return." "You've got it, kiddo, but you better hurry. We can't hold out for long," Gamma said as Minato, Jiraiya, and Sarutobi jumped from their heads. Sarutobi, there's a cave to the east, get it set with all the right seals, that's where we will place Naruto, Minato said, followed by the old man nodding. And make sure they make him a hero, make sure everyone knows what has happened today. My boy isn't a monster, he's the monster's jailer. Without him we would be dead. Sarutobi nodded again before vanishing, leaving his summon among the toads to help fight. You're sure about this? Jiraiya asked while looking to the Uchiha who had drawn their katanas. It's the only way now, Minato paused. Uchiha. Hold him until I return. Try to push him to the east side of the village. That is where I will be ready to take him down. Understood? Yes, sir! They screamed while jumping into the trees with a loud battle cry. And history tells itself. Minato takes his child after saying his goodbyes to his lovely wife and uses his Hiraishin no Jutsu to get close to the Kyuubi and seal his soul away inside of Naruto, but as the beast fell he crashed onto the cave holding Naruto before his body vanished and crushed it with its huge mass. For 3 days they looked through the rubble for a body of the boy, and on the third day Kushina had given up after seeing her love give his life, and now losing her child fled Konoha, returning from which she came without telling anyone. The next day came to pass and Jiraiya still sat among the rubble exhausted but refusing to stop the search. The sun had just peeked over the horizon, and finally he noticed a crimson glow below his feet. In a panic he dug through it, prayed to Kami to have mercy on the child. And Kami heard him. Jiraiya lifted the boy into his arms. He had a hard crimson churka shell around his body and a seal on his gut that burned with chakra. The baby was sleeping soundly in the orb as Jiraiya held it. You're alive, Naruto, he said, followed by the orb cracking and vanishing in his hands. Naruto, he said again, a tear falling from his eyes. Minato, damn it, kid, he said while crying, and hold the child. No, what do I do? We raise him. A voice came from behind to show Sarutobi standing over the crying man. Naruto Uzumaki will be his name, and he will be the hero of Konoha. Or so they thought. Even with all the promises Minato had Sarutobi make, the hearts of humans are easily corrupted, especially when there's blood to atone for. He tried his best to get the people to see Naruto as a hero, but they believed what they wanted, and all they wanted to do was hate the young boy. Sarutobi was able to protect Naruto as a baby along with the help of Kurenai, Kakashi and Jiraiya when he stopped by the village from his travels. Tsunade had left the village along with Shizune and hasn't been heard from since, but ever since Naruto turned 5 and began wanting to play with the other children of the villages, the adults became the children. Naruto walked through the Kage's mansion with his usual smile. On his cheek was a bandage from a few healing scratches. The women of the mansion found it to be cute on the child, especially with his smile. He wasn't sure what the older girls were talking about when they would say he looked familiar, but he didn't really care. Today was supposed to be an important day for him. Sarutobi had told him to meet him in his office by noon for a surprise, but he couldn't wait. Naruto hated surprises. Naruto approached the office door only to see it open and reveal Itachi standing in his Anbu outfit. Hey Itachi! Naruto yelled, earning a half-hearted smile from the Uchiha, as he bent down, placing a hand in the blonde's hair. Off to another mission? He asked in his childish voice. Down the hall you could see the younger women of the mansion sticking their heads out and blushing while mumbling a few words about the man and children. Itachi wished Naruto would stay in the mansion more, where people didn't treat him like trash. He looked to his cheek and shook his head slightly. Yes, Naruto, and no, I can't tell you, Itachi said coldly, but still smiling softly down at the boy. You take care of yourself, kid. Try not to get any more scraps and bumps while I'm not around. Kakashi's out on a mission so he won't be able to watch your back either. I don't need your guys to watch my back. It'll show you one day I'll be really strong just like you and the old man. Believe it, Naruto yelled, earning a strange reaction from the man. He stood slowly holding a sad smile on his face. Let's hope you grow out of that little saying now, Naruto-kun. Goodbye for now. And with that Itachi walked past the blonde, allowing his bangs to hang over his eyes. Farewell, Konoha. Naruto walked into Sarutobi's office to see his head placed down on the palms of his hands over his desk. He was staring down at a scroll with a glare in his eyes that Naruto wasn't sure he liked. Damn you, Danza, he mumbled to himself, only to hear Naruto at the door. Old man? Naruto said calmly. What's wrong? Naruto's voice was like a soothing instrument. Even though at times he was annoying, the Hokage didn't mind. He reminded him of his father, especially when he smiled. Nothing, kiddo, come in and take a seat. I've got a surprise for you, he said while rolling the scroll up and placing it in his desk. Naruto didn't waste any time. He ran and jumped in the chair while holding his feet and letting out a few chuckles or childish giggles of excitement. What is it? Come on, you know I hate surprises, he yelled, followed by the man smiling and nodding. I'm going to start teaching you how to become a shinobi, my boy, along with the help of Kakashi when he returns and even Jiraiya when we see him again. You've always said you want to be strong, and well, now. Sarutobi never finished his sentence before hearing Naruto's shouts of excitement. He was standing in his chair and shouting for joy, so much like his father. Naruto ran around the desk and quickly hugged the man while shouting, "Thanks, old man, I promise I'll never give up." Good. Sarutobi paused while looking at the boy because it's going to be painful training, but first you must train your mind. With that being said, Sarutobi pulled out several books and set them on the table with a smile. They were old and seemed like they might fall apart from the slightest touch. Naruto moaned while letting his head hang low and his arms dangle limp. "Books? Not just any books, my boy. These books were mine when I was in the academy, and I've placed notes on pretty much everything, easier ways to do things, and different combos and opinions on a few events in the history book," he said while looking down at Naruto. "I'll give you a few days to read them all." "I'm 5, and you want me to read?" Naruto yelled, earning a nod from the older man. He was serious. He himself taught Naruto to read when he was 3. He had faith in the boy. "If it will make you feel better, you can head over to Kurenai-san's house, and she might help you today." Naruto blushed while scratching his cheek and snatching the books up from the desk. "Deal." Sarutobi laughed at the boy as he walked through the door and into the hallway. "So much like you, father." Sarutobi said as a man stepped from the shadows. "Yes, Hokage-sama?" A man appeared with a bear mask, bowing. "Watch after him today and tomorrow and send message to Kurenai to be ready for him," Sarutobi said while letting out a sigh and rubbing his eyes. "Yes, Hokage-sama." The Hokage was alone now and turned to look out towards the mountains and then down towards the Uchiha compound where his eyes remained fixed on. "This isn't what you would have wanted for a second, but there's nothing I can do, Itachi, I'm sorry." Naruto walked quickly while smiling. He loved visiting the crimson-eyed women, mostly because she was always so kind to him and simple beautiful. Even as a child he knew that much. Jiraiya would always say weird things around her and get hit, which made him laugh while thinking of the pervy sage getting beaten by the beauty, but his laughing was drawn short as he noticed a small group ahead of him slightly glaring at him. Naruto stopped in the road and looked left and right to try to go around them, but her house was right beyond them. "I've got to go through them." "Where are you going?" one of the old teens said while standing in his way. Naruto looked up at him with a blank face, not knowing what to say. The older boy and his group of friends. In the shadows, the Sarutobi sat and prepared to step in, but felt his fist close tightly. "Demon," he mumbled before inching back into the darkness where he would sit and watch. "I need pass you guys, please," Naruto said while smiling and holding a hand up to scratch his head. "I've got to go study with," but he never finished. Naruto watched the boy's hand fly down and knocked the books from his grip, sending them to the dirt. "Hey!" Naruto yelled and tried to dive for the books, but felt someone behind him pulling him into a headlock. The oldest of the group bent down and lifted up a book. "Chakra Control Basics? What, brat, you want to become a shinobi? What a joke! My parents always said you wear trash. What makes you think this village needs a trashy shinobi like you?" The boy grabbed the cover of the book with both hands and began ripping it from the spine before throwing it on the ground. "Those are the Hokages. Stop it!" Naruto yelled, only to see the boy laugh. "The Hokages? Why would he give you anything?" The boy raised his foot and prepared to stomp on the books, only to see Naruto break free from the older boy holding him and throw himself over the books. At first his foot flinched, but he only smirked before following through with his kick. Naruto felt his foot among the other boy's feet, coming down on his head and back, even a few kicks to his ribs, but he never moved and never screamed. "What's going on?" a female's voice screamed, or at least that's what Naruto thought he heard. His ears were ringing as he looked up to see 2 masked men he had never seen before holding 4 of the boys by their collars and Kurenai running towards him. His eyes began to water as he looked down to see the book the boy ripped, and he started to cry. "What did I do?" he thought to himself. "The old man's going to get mad at me." "Naruto," the woman said while kneeling down next to him and pulling him into her lap as he cried. "Naruto, it's all right, dear," she said again, trying to calm the boy down. "What have I ever done to them? I don't understand," he said while holding the book in his hand and coughing from his uncontrollable tears. Kurenai placed a hand on his head only to see him flinch. "Blood," she thought while lifting her hand and seeing it slowly begin to darken his blonde hair. She felt her eyes start to water slightly as she whipped it on her shirt and cupped his cheeks. "Naruto-kun, it's all right, dear, you're safe now." "What happened?" another voice said in the distance as a man who smelled of tobacco knelt down next to them. "Azuma," she whispered, "his head's bleeding, go get a medical team." "I don't want to move him." The man nodded but stopped and turned to a shadowy corner. He bit down on his cancer stick and Naruto watched as a spark lit from it, followed by an explosion lighting the shadows of the ally watching over the scene. "What's?" Naruto mumbled while realized the warmth of blood in his hair, and he felt his body freeze. It's not like this hadn't happened before, but not to the point of him bleeding this much. In the corner the man stood with his bear mask only to feel a hand wrap around his throat. He was thrown into the street by Azuma, followed by another group of appearing. Naruto could hear the man screaming at the Umbu member, but he didn't care. He was about to panic about the blood, but before he could, he felt a warm hand on his cheek and looked up to see the smiling red-eyed women looking down at him. "It's alright, Naruto. Azuma will handle everything and then he'll go get a medic for you. He'll stay by your side until I know you're safe." Naruto could feel her thumb gently rubbing his cheek as he slightly nuzzled into her touch. "Is this what it's like to have a mom?" Naruto mumbled slowly, feeling his eyes grow heavier with each second. Kurenai's eyes went wide while she looked down at the boy. His gaze was soft but scared. She noticed she rubbed his cheek and shushed him. He nuzzled into her more and more. Before his eyes shut, she bent down and kissed his forehead. "Yes, Naruto, now rest and relax. He'll be here when you wake up." Naruto opened his eyes only to hear the screams of what sounded like a boy no older than him. Next to his bed was a sleeping form of Kurenai. "Why?" the voice screamed, followed by several whispers of the doctors and nurses pulling him into the room with Naruto. "Brother, why?" he cried again before kicking a doctor away from him and falling to the floor, where he cried, "Itachi." Kurenai's eyes shot open as she stood, seeing Naruto awake and the screaming boy being pulled into the room with him. Naruto sat up quickly, ignoring the bruises and his wounded head. Sasuke looked up at him with tears filling his eyes and then to Kurenai. "What's going on?" Naruto asked through dry lips. He must have been out for the rest of the day and most of the night. Kurenai stood before bringing her hand to Naruto's head, getting his attention. "I'll go find out. You lay back down." "Yes, go back to sleep, son," a doctor said while lifting Sasuke from the floor and into a bed where they began running checks on him. Kurenai stood with them as they began whispering. "He's not wounded," a doctor said as another one nodded. Suddenly Sasuke began to cry again while gripping his blanket. His teeth were shut together tightly as one of the doctors grabbed a needle, only to hear a man at the door. "Don't," it said. Naruto knew his voice. It was the old man. Kurenai turned to him and raised an eyebrow. He stepped into the room, glancing over at Naruto, but quickly back to Sasuke. "But sir, he's going into shock," the doctor said, only to hear Sasuke let out a horrifying scream. Kurenai placed a hand on his forehead and closed her eyes while concentrating chakra and preparing a soothing genjutsu. "Don't, Kurenai-san, go back to Naruto," Sarutobi said calmly, but clearly you could hear the sadness in his tone. "Sir, he's just a child," she argued, only to see him shake his head at her before looking into her eyes. "He just saw his entire family dead." "Of course he is, but your drugs will help nothing. He needs to cry, he needs to let it all out, or it will haunt him for the rest of his life." Naruto knew who Sasuke was, who didn't. He would see him on his big brother's back in the village all the time. The girls in the village all thought he was so adorable, and well, everyone loved Itachi, even Naruto did. Itachi was one of the only younger people who was kind to the blonde, but how could he have done something like that? Naruto didn't believe Itachi was responsible for the Uchiha massacre, but who was he to voice his opinion? He listened all night to Sasuke's screams of sorrow and pain, and could only sympathize with the boy. "What did I do to deserve this?" he said a few times, but mostly was why. Naruto wasn't old enough to know what fate or anything like that was, but he knew enough to ask why things like this had to happen. Why couldn't people just have happiness? Why couldn't people just be stronger? A few days passed and Naruto sat in the home of Kurenai in her spare room reading over the third book of the old man's. Affinity Elements was the title, and it was one of the longer ones. He had already read through Genjutsu, Kenjutsu, Taijutsu, and Ninjutsu by himself, but Kurenai had told him he had to know what chakra control and elemental affinities were before he could understand Genjutsu and Ninjutsu. "Well, what do I need to do to learn Kenjutsu?" Naruto asked, earning shrug from the women. "I'm a Genjutsu specialist, kiddo. When I see Azuma-san, I'll ask him, and he might get to help you." "Do you have an interest in using a blade?" she asked, earning a nod from the boy and a large smile that made her grin at him. "I read in the book that some of the best shinobi swordsmen were from another village, and there was 7 of them. It said they specialized in Kenjutsu, making them all dangerous foes," Naruto explained, only to see the older women smile and nod. They were the types of men that would do anything for their village, and at one point all good men, but nowadays most of the remaining men lost their path and aren't the nicest group of guys. Naruto smirked and looked back down into the books. "I'll never lose my way," he said smugly. "I want to help people so one day they'll realize I'm not a freak, I'm not a monster." A year passed, and even though it took longer than he would have hoped to get help from everyone, he had read all the books more than once. Sarutobi was proud at how fast he was learning and was even more surprised when he learned the basic shinobi survival skills. He was deadly with a shuriken and kunai, but even smoother with his basic jutsu such as Bunshin no Jutsu, Henji no Jutsu, and even substitution. Like any academy student would, he knew almost all of the hand signs and was getting better at releasing controlled bursts of chakra, even though he hadn't been taught chakra control yet. He was a natural and wouldn't give up, but today was Jiraiya's turn to watch over him. He as Hokage had scroll duty. "Push it," Jiraiya said to the blonde while sitting on a stump and watching the blonde. He stood in front of a short tree with man branches. His shins and forearms were scratched and bruised as he kicking and punched at the tree. It was how Sarutobi had taught him, and how he had taught Minato. The pain didn't only help memorize the steps, but at the same time you could learn how much your body could take. Stop, Jiraiya said while standing and walking over to the boy. Naruto had frozen on the spot while panting for and let out almost silent grunts of pain. After a few months of this he had almost gotten used to it, but it still wasn't easy to ignore the pain after a while. Jiraiya placed a hand on his arm and lowered it before sliding his left leg out a bit. Now when he go to backhand this branch, I want you to give it all you have, he said, earning a shocked look from Naruto. But what if it doesn't break? Naruto asked, only to see their older man smile. That's exactly what you dad asked. Then your arm will break, he said before turning his back and walking back to his stump where his research scroll was. Now go, Jiraiya said, followed by Naruto biting his lips slightly before following through with his hit. A loud snap filled the air as Naruto let out a loud yell. Jiraiya looked up to see the branch laying on the ground and Naruto smiling over at the white-haired man. Only your father's arm broke. You're something else, kiddo, he thought while standing and rolling his scroll up. He walked to Naruto and stood next to him before balling his fists up and holding them out in front of himself. Now watch my movements. I think this fighting style will fit you. Naruto watched as Jiraiya popped his neck a few times and began hopping back and forth on the balls of his feet. Watch, he said again before pivoting towards the tree and moving his head out of the way of an oncoming branch. He brought his forearm up and snapped it before turning with another fast yet smooth pivot and brining his knee up and elbow down to break a branch in half. When he struck out, he rarely used his fists, only his palms, unless the hit was devastating. By the time the man was done, every branch on the tree were done, leaving and still hopping Sannin. What was that? He asked, only to see Jiraiya smile and wink at the boy. Something a lot of people don't know: you use your feet, shins, knees, forearms, elbows and hands as your weapons. After practicing this for a while, not only will it help you move easier, but your dodging abilities will be greater and more controlled. I taught it to the 4th Hokage, and it was my own invention when I was a chunin, though I think Guy taught himself a few of the moves. He doesn't even understand it all. Alright, Naruto yelled, only to see Jiraiya smile and look towards the sun. He slipped his sandals back on and stretched. Alright, the sun will be going down in a few hours, let's go get some ramen. Naruto and Jiraiya fed themselves until they could hardly walk and slowly made their ways back to the mansion, only to see Sarutobi waiting for them with a smile on his face. Once again Naruto was bruised and covered in dirt, but still smiling. How was training? He asked, only to see Jiraiya shake his head and hold his arms out. Beside him Naruto was bouncing from foot to foot with his arms in front of him, jabbing at the air in front of his and raising his knees up in quickly thrusts. He was pumped. His arm didn't break, the Sannin said smugly. Sarutobi looked down at Naruto with a look of astonishment before smiling at him. You realize, my dear boy, that I did the same training with Jiraiya here, and the first time I told him to hit the branch his arm broke. Really? Naruto asked, looking up at the Sannin, who simply nodded while patting his arm. The same thing happened with the 4th, Jiraiya added. He could see the excitement in Naruto's eyes sparking even more until it exploded. He jumped from the ground, throwing his fist into the air and laughing awesome. He yelled, only to feel Sarutobi place a hand on his head. Naruto, I have a surprise for you, the Hokage said before looking up to Jiraiya, who had a casual look on his face. Surprise? The last time you have a surprise, well, it didn't turn out to be a good day, Naruto said while reaching for his head where his old wound once bled. Sarutobi let out a sigh before pulling his hat off and smiling at the blonde. Well, this time it will be different. How would you like to leave the village with me for a few days? The Mizukage wants to have a meeting with me, and even though the council was against me taking you, I told them to. Sarutobi paused before rethinking his sentence. While I told them you were coming, Sarutobi finished, earning a glance from Jiraiya. Sensei, you're aware of the blue, Jiraiya said, only to see him nod, cutting his sentence off with his own. I'm aware, Jiraiya, and I'm perfectly capable of protecting Naruto if anything should happen. Jiraiya looked down at the exited blonde and back at this master, and stepped closer to him to whisper in his ear, it's not him I'm worried about. My spy networks know a lot about the Mizukage. He's a kind man, but when it comes to certain things he's dangerous, and we're only getting older. You worry too much, my boy. Yagura has told me he wanted to speak of a peace treaty between us. Ever since the 3rd Mizukage and the civil war, they have been short on supplies, and I'm sure I can convince him to stop the blood purges if it meant more trades between the two villages. I might even get some of their hunter secrets out of him. You know their hunters are more skilled than any other villages, Sarutobi explained before looking over to Naruto. Besides, he needs a scene change. Being hated constantly isn't something you should have to look forward to. Naruto had never been outside of the village before and was excited beyond belief as they walked down the path together. The old man had a pipe in his mouth while smiling and glancing down at Naruto, whose eyes scanned the area. Naruto had always liked plants and gardening, but he'd never really gotten a chance to try and grow anything, unlike Ino, who he had seen plant tons of things with her parents at their shop. Naruto stopped while looking off the path. There was a bright crimson flower sitting along in an open space. Its stem was a beautiful green and almost had a light blue tint to it. "What is it?" Sarutobi asked while walking over to Naruto. He saw it, and smiled. It wasn't a surprise that he would notice the flower. It was his mother's favorite kind. Naruto walked over to it, and took a deep breath while crouching over top the flower. "It smells familiar." "It's called a crimson picayune. Once it's aged, the center of it is as crimson as the edges here," Sarutobi pointed out, "but when it's freshly blossomed, the center is white, and fades out through a shade of pink, and then crimson." Naruto reached down and plucked it from the ground and held it in his hands while still looking at it. He took another waft of its scent and smiled before turning and walking back to the trail where he noticed an Umbu member standing. "So we should hurry. It would be rude to be late for a meeting between Kages," the man said, only to see Sarutobi shrug before looking down at Naruto, who was still looking at the flower in his hands. "We will walk. I want Naruto here to take up each little picture he can and remember what he sees." It took them most of the day, but they arrived at the large body of water only to see a boat awaiting them. Kirinin stood and bowed slightly, followed by the leaf Umbu appearing, staying alert. "If anything should happen, get Naruto out and signal the village, understood?" Sarutobi whispered, earning a nod from the group. "And I don't mean watch him get taken by someone, I meant make sure you have him with you alive, or it will be your head after Ibiki gets hold of you." "You can count on me," a woman in a hawk mask said. Her hair was raven black, but nothing else could be seen as she was covered by a black cloak, but he knew who she was and was glad she was with them. "We understand, Lord Hokage," the other said, followed by a man walking from the boat and taking a bow. "Hello, Lord Hokage," the man said before looking up. Sarutobi looked down at the man and smiled. He felt Naruto close behind him. "No need for such formalities. I'm an old man these days, and that only makes me feel older," Sarutobi said, still smiling. "Will you and your men be our escorts to the Mizukage?" "Yes, sir, but may I ask who the child is?" the man asked, looking down to Naruto, who stayed behind the man. "He's my grandson. He's always wanted to travel, so I figured he could come along. Why is this a problem?" the old Kage asked, only to see the shinobi hold his hands up. "No, sir, not at all. It's just we were informed that you know of our predicament in these areas, and I didn't expect you to bring a child. It's a bit dangerous," he said quickly before clearing his throat. Sarutobi leaned down and pulled Naruto up onto his shoulder, where the blonde-haired child blushed slightly. Naruto wasn't one to get embarrassed, but they were surrounded by an other village's shinobi, and the old man was acting so casual it was weird. The Umbu and Kiri shinobi walked onto the large boat and began to make their way through the misty waters. Naruto would see many other shinobi on the boat, all working on certain spots of the ships. It was just like in the stories Kurenai would tell him. When he would study overnight at her house, he hadn't gotten to see much of her lately, which he wasn't too happy about, but this was making up for it. He walked to the side of the boat, looking over the water. Even tough it was misty, he could see the large waves their ship sent through the water as it cut through it. "This is awesome, old man!" Naruto yelled while laughing and running to another side of the boat. Sarutobi sat and watched Naruto talk with the other men on the boat and laugh with some of them. Sarutobi found himself chuckling loudly at the sight of Naruto trying to help a few of the sailors and trying to help them pull up a net from the water. His face was turning all different shades of red while he struggled and let out loud, frustrated grunts. "This is what life is like, Naruto. This is how life should be for you." Naruto stood at the front of the ship as the shinobi began to shout out commands. He could see the mist growing thinner and thinner in the distance. Behind the mist he could see a large shadow, and the sound of birds chirping filled the air. "We're here, kiddo," Sarutobi said while smiling. Naruto watched the mist clear and could now see the land. It was a thicket of forest and fog. The sun shining through the mists of the area gave it a blue tint which Naruto found amazing. It was kinda like looking through colored glass. "This is the land hidden in the mist, Naruto, but from here on you'll be on my back, alright? We need to hurry." "Alright, but promise we can go looking around afterwards," Naruto said, earning a nod from the older man. "I promise." The group moved quickly, and before they knew it they were in the village. It was a lot like Konoha, but everything seemed to have blue in it, and not red. Sarutobi explained as they walked that it was because it would help them blend in when the sun sent the blue tint over the village, keeping it hidden. The streets were filled with shops and every kind of person he saw: rich, poor, workers, beggars, and even children running and playing. As he walked, his head was constantly turning and following sounds and voices. In fact, he paid so much attention to everything around him and none to where he was walking. Before he knew anything, he had bumped into someone and knocked them over, followed by him falling down as well, landing next to the person. "Ah geez," Naruto mumbled while rubbing his arm and looking over to see a girl with crimson hair with a flower in it as she began sitting up. She was in a formal-looking dress and looked a few years older than him. "Couldn't you watch where you're going?" she yelled before turning while pulling the white flower from her hair and crushing it in her hand, only to see Naruto scratching his head and all the Umbu and Kirinin looking down at them. She felt her cheeks grow crimson as her head flew down, and she began apologizing. I'm so sorry, sirs, please forgive me. Naruto was a bit confused and looked back to see Sarutobi nod at him as if encouraging him to say something. The Kirin was about to speak only when Naruto placed a hand on the girl's shoulder. He felt bad for knocking her down. It's alright, you don't have to apologize. It was my fault, Naruto said in his cut little tone that would make most girls blush and ah. The female Anbu in the group giggled a bit as the girl looked up with her greenish-blue eyes and saw the blonde holding out a flower to her with a huge smile on his face. Here, take it. The girl blushed before reaching out and gently taking it from the innocent boy. You crushed yours and this one won't last much longer. Since I pulled it out a while ago, it would look better with your hair before it shrivels, Naruto explained, earning a smile from the girl as they both stood. Thank you once again, I'm sorry for stopping you all, she said, looking up at the shinobi group. Sarutobi nodded while smiling at her. It's fine, young lady. It seems my grandson here has made a new friend, he said, only to see Naruto blush a bit before elbowing the man in the knee. Stop trying to embarrass me, he mumbled, earning a small blush and nod from the girl before she ran off in the distance, flower in her hair. Finally, after the long walk, they made it to the mansion and to the meeting room. Sarutobi had refused to leave Naruto, which resulted into them searching him before they entered the room. It was dark but well maintained. The floor was white marble, and in the center of the room was a table and 2 chairs. Around the table was like stadium seating for the council members. Sarutobi and Naruto took a bow in one of the beams of greenish lights coming from the roof. Lord Hokage, a young voice called out, followed by a shorter man stepping from the shadows. He was dressed in green with his Hokage's hat in hand. Lord Mizukage, I'm sorry I'm late, Sarutobi said, smiling. I made sure to show my grandson a few things before getting here. Yes, I was told as much, and it seems he made a few friends among my crew and villagers, he said while smiling and revealing the rest of his face. His face was peaceful, and his eyes had a purple glow to them. One thing Naruto didn't understand was the purple stitching leading from his right eye, but he knew not to stare. Yes, I know it can be distracting at times, he said while taking his seat and gesturing Sarutobi to sit. Naruto and the old Hokage took a few steps forward only to see Yagura flinch slightly and look at Naruto with wide eyes. Naruto looked back at the man with a bit of uneasiness in his eyes but soon saw the Mizukage smile at them. Sarutobi smiled as well and took a seat. So what is your name, child? He asked, earning a smirk from Naruto. My name's Naruto Uzumaki, the blonde said, smiling only to see yet another flicker in the man's eyes, but he continued to smile. Well, aren't you loudspeaker, he said in a joking manner. In that case, my name is Yagura of Kurigakura. Nice to meet you, Naruto Uzumaki. The man tried to match the boy antics, causing Naruto to laugh slightly. Naruto knew he was loud at times, and he was glad the man wasn't annoyed by it. The last thing he wanted to do was get Gramps in trouble. Naruto looked around at all the people in the room and was surprised by some of them. They looked younger, the council and Konoha. There were only a few older members, but Konoha had those 2 people as old as Gramps, and they looked like walking death. So Yagura, what is it you've wanted to discuss with me today? Sarutobi asked, only to see the young man smile. Well, as you know, my land is having its problems, as it has for many years, and I wish it to come to an end, he said, earning a smirk from Sarutobi. That's good news. Ending the blood purge would give your markets and trading values a major boost, since people won't need to worry about being attacked, Sarutobi said, earning a nod from the man. Which is exactly why I've called you here. I want you to help me put an end to them and keep my villagers safe from attack, he said while leaning back in his chair. Sarutobi heard the strangeness in his words and raised an eyebrow. He's trying to twist his words to sneak his way to the truth, Sarutobi said to himself. What do you mean, Yagura, when you say help you with it? Sarutobi asked the smirking man who pulled a scroll from his cloak. Naruto stood with a blank look on his face, simply watching the two talk. You see, I'm in need of troops, Sarutobi. If Konoha was willing to lend me aid and finish cleansing this land, then it would be good for both our villages. Our silks, herbs, and ore is found only in our lands, and we could boost out trades even more than you could plan. I might even throw in a few hunter secrets to seal the deal, the man said softly. His voice wasn't cruel or aragonite. He was kind and believed in everything he was saying. It was silent for a while as Sarutobi read over the scroll before closing his eyes and setting it down on the table. Yagura, I'm sorry, but I won't order my men to shed innocent blood, the proud Kage said while looking into the eyes of the younger man. Understand, Sarutobi, in helping me do this you could prevent so much wrong in the world. These bloodlines could one cause another incident like your people have suffered with the Uchiha clan. There could be worse things in those people's blood than even my worst nightmares, Yagura explained, still in a calm tone. Those are your people to Yagura. If you would bring them in and show them true leadership, then you and your village could rise higher than you could imagine, Sarutobi said before standing and nodding his head. Now if you'll excuse me, I'll be leaving. Come, Naruto. As he turned and Yagura began to speak, they both paused due to the door of the hall slinging open. It was one of Konoha's Umbu with a katana drawn blocking another blade. Lord Hokage! The village is being attacked, we must leave at once! He yelled, followed by several cloaked Kiri shinobi appearing in the room and drawing weapons. The Konoha Umbu force was pushed into the room, followed by the roar of charging men and the screaming of jutsu. The ground shook as Naruto stood in place. At his side was Sarutobi, who was holding onto his arm tightly while scanning the area calmly. Umbu! Sarutobi yelled, followed by them forming a line in front of him. Kiri! Yugura yelled while throwing his robes off and letting out a growl. Slaughter them all! Protected the Hokage. The council began to shout and run in a stampede towards an exit, pushing through the Umbu forces and past Sarutobi. The old man saw an enemy blending in with the council and quickly grabbed him by the neck and lifted him from the ground before slamming him back down. You! Sarutobi yelled while looking to Umbu women in a hawk mask. Take Naruto and go. Meet the rest of yous at the boat, understood? Sarutobi yelled before glancing over to see Yugura dancing through the men with a short blade in one hand and a longer katana in the other. He had a fierce look in his eyes as he killed the men without hesitation. Naruto couldn't help but watch the man's style as he danced through the heated battle. Go now! Sarutobi yelled while noticing several shouts at once and turned ahead to see a line of men making hand signs. The Hawkumbu saw this and grabbed Naruto, holding him closely before pushing chakra into her legs. She leaped over the running council mixed with fighting shinobi. She looked back along with Naruto to see Sarutobi standing with his Umbu, only to hear Katan, Gokakyu no Jutsu! Fire style, Great Fireball Jutsu! The line of men yelled, causing the Umbu to charge at them, only to hear another voice. Doton, Dorihiki no Jutsu! Earth style, Earth's Wall Jutsu! Sarutobi yelled as the flames charged towards them, burning several Kiri shinobi in the process, but before it could hit him and his Umbu, a huge wall shot from the ground around them, leaving the flames to slap against it like a strong wind. The hawk-masked Umbu stood holding Naruto close to her but failed to realize a man behind her. Naruto turned in time to see the blade plunge through her chest and her scream out in pain. No! Naruto screamed while turning and ramming his fist in between the man's legs, causing him to shout in pain before bending over by the 6-year-old. Break the bench, Jiraiya's voice said in high mind, and before he knew what he was doing he used all the might he could muster and backhanded the man, knocking him over where he stayed limp. Naruto watched the woman fall over, cough blood from underneath her mask before she gripped his arm tightly. Jigo Naruto, the voice called out. Naruto recognized it but wasn't given time to see who it was. She pushed him away towards the door where he nodded and ran as fast as he could. Sarutobi sighed as his Umbu vanished and appeared on the other side of the wall to kill the attackers. He turned to see if Kurenai had gotten away with Naruto, but he saw the woman laying on her side, bleeding badly, holding her wounded chest. Naruto! Sarutobi mumbled. He was nowhere to be seen. Naruto! Sarutobi yelled again while looking through the crowd of fighting men. A man lunged at him and charged towards Kurenai but was met with a kunai in the gut before being kicked with an inhumanly amount of force and sent against the marble wall, cracking it. What's wrong? Yugura's voice yelled. Where's Naruto? Sarutobi yelled in a panic while kneeling down next to the bleeding women. Naruto! Naruto ran panting through the streets of the village as men and women screamed. Kiri shinobi slaughtered any man who looked at them funny. As he ran he noticed the crimson-haired girl from earlier sitting in a dark corner where a man stood looking in at her. Royalty? He mumbled to himself while pulling a kunai out and licking it. This will be fun. Naruto thought about screaming for help, but who would he call out to? He quickly made a few hand signs and watched as a clone appeared next to him. Make sure he doesn't touch you until we get away. The empty copy nodded as Naruto pulled up a rock and thrust it into the air like he would at kunai practice. It slammed into the back of the man's head. The man turned quickly to see Naruto hitting his butt and sticking his tuff out before running away. You little bastard! He yelled before forgetting about the girl and running after it. Naruto stayed tucked to the corner and watched the man running after his clone. He knew the old man would be proud of him, but he didn't have time for that. He quickly ran to the girl as she sat in the corner with her eyes shut. Hey, he whispered, come on before he gets back. He'll catch my clone any second now. She slowly opened her eyes to see the same blonde from earlier looking down at her. He had reached down and pulled up a kunai on the ground. We have to hurry, come on. She said nothing and took his hand, allowing him to pull her up. I'll get you home, and you can show me the direction of the docks after that, alright? Yes, she said, slightly amazed at his attitude. He looked around the corner and chocked while pulling back quickly and pushing her against the wall. 3 men ran past them like a blur. Naruto peeked out again, only this time it was clear. Okay, now let's move. Naruto managed to get the girl to her home where she walked into the gates. She looked back at the blonde only to see her family guards running towards her along with her father. May, are you alright? He yelled, earning a nod from the girl. He saved me. A man was going to get me and he saved me, she said softly. Please, can he stay here where it's safe? No dear, he can't. We don't know him. He could be a young assassin, "Now boy, leave now," the man yelled, only to see Naruto feel a bit hurt. "At least point me to the docks. I'm with the Hokage, and if I don't get back it could be bad," Naruto said softly, earning a glance from the man. He pointed west and started walking again. Mei continued to look back at him as he smiled at her. "You're welcome, Mei-chan." Sarutobi at his umbu spread through the village alongside Yagura and his men. "We must find him," Sarutobi yelled before coming across a man chasing Naruto. He yelled. Sarutobi vanished alongside Yagura and appeared in front of the man chasing after the blonde. Two blades slammed into his gut, followed by a kunai slitting his throat. Sarutobi and the young Mizukage had ended his life before the man even knew it. The blonde came to a stop while looking at them with a blank look. "Naruto, thank God," Sarutobi mumbled while pulling a hand on his shoulder, only to feel the blonde vanish between his fingers. "A clone? But he's only a child," Yagura mumbled, only to see Sarutobi hit the ground. "He'll go the boat." Naruto panted while running from the village and into the forest. He could hear men on his trail laughing and leaping through the trees faster than he could run. The blonde came to a stop while bending over and panting for air, only to hear metal cutting through the air. The attacker watched his Samban hit their mark but was disappointed as the boy's body vanished, leaving a log behind. "What? He's a boy. And he knows jutsu? Damn it, find him, we can't let a child embarrass us like this." Naruto was hiding under a log, panting for air but trying his best to control his breathing and heart rate. "What do I do?" he asked himself, while panting a bit louder. He could feel tears in his eyes now as he thought of everything that had happened in such a short time. Was the old man alright? Did the women protecting him die? Was he going to die? "Come here," a voice said from beside him. He turned to see an older man with orange and gray hair looking under the log at him, reaching for him. Naruto froze instantly while looking at the man as he gripped his shirt. Naruto tried to scream, only to feel the man's hand cover his mouth. Naruto could see the kunai in the man's hand and knew it was over. He was going to die. Naruto's blood went cold at the sight of the gleaming metal in the man's hand. He had placed his hand over the blonde's mouth and seemed to be sticking to the shadows while looking over the log. His eyes scanned the shadows and area like he was making sure it was safe. "Is he not with the other shinobi?" "Keep quiet, kid," the man whispered before releasing his mouth. Naruto turned his head more to see a long staff or halberd in his hand laying on the ground. The end had a short but thick blade attached to it, and it was covered in silver and blue designs. "Who are you?" Naruto asked, only to see the man's dark blue, almost purple eyes glaring down at him. It was as if he was trying to figure out who the boy was. "What? You're not going to kill me, are you?" The man almost looked amused and completely released the boy, only to see him do a back flip and pull up a rock in his hand. The man was even more amused as he stood, letting out a soft chuckle. Naruto didn't know what to think at this point. The man wasn't giving him any answers, but he released him. He knew he would have to stay on guard, and he was just a kid. Even if he had gotten away from the other men, they were all more emotional, or in Naruto's words, stupid. This man looked calm but at the same time fierce, no matter how old he looked. "You've got spirit, boy," he whispered while slinging his long weapon and latching it to his back. "But I just saved your life. My name is Haruo, and I think you should come with me. I can help keep you safe and might even be able to get you home if you have one." Naruto was shocked by the man's kindness, and wasn't sure if he should believe the man, but he needed rest, and was hungry. His head was pounding from all the worrying he had been going through over the old man. All he wanted was some rest. "Alright, but you promise you won't hurt me or anything?" Naruto asked, earning a smile and nod from the man who took a step towards him holding a hand out. "I promise, child. Wait," he said before looking around them quickly. Naruto flinched at the sight of the man pulling his weapon back into his hands and fell onto his backside. What? You promised," Naruto yelled, only to hear something cutting through the air towards him. Naruto looked up in time to see the same man that was after him before lunging kunai at him. Naruto's eyes shut quickly as he did his best to curl into a defensive position and wait for the pain, but to his surprise it never came. Only the sound of metal colliding with metal was heard. Naruto's eyes opened to see the older man's spear protecting him. "Kiri Shinobi, return home, or you won't be allowed to live," the man threatened, only to see two other men appear laughing down at him. Naruto went pale at the odds of this older man being able to take them on, and quickly gripped the rock he had been holding onto, and lunged it at the man who had attacked him. It slammed into his nose, causing him to shout in frustration and pain before looking down at them. "I'll kill you, brah," he yelled, only to feel the blunt end of the staff slam into his jaw, knocking him into a tree which splintered and cracked a bit from the force of which he was thrown. "That's your first warning. The next time I'll use the blade. Take your friend and go now or die," the old man said before sliding into a stance. Naruto felt a sweat drop fall from his chin while watching the man smile at them. You could almost see the chakra coming off his body, but what made him scary was the glow over the silver and blue leading up to the blade, which seemed to be burning with blue flames. "This won't be the last time you see us," one of the men said before lifting his friend and vanishing. If one thing was clear, this old man was no pushover. Come on, kid, follow me. Dash, May. I can't believe you, Dad. May screamed at her father, who had a look of astonishment on his face. Never had she been so rebellious as to raise her voice to him. May, don't you dare raise your voice to your father, her mother said while walking into the room. That boy could have been dangerous. He is doing what is right. He saved me life twice. He didn't have to bring me home. He could have asked me the way to the dock and left from there, but he didn't. He was just visiting our village with the Wade. I think it was the Hokage. May paused, getting a shocked reaction from her mother and father. And I didn't even get his name. May said the last part in a whisper before turning her head to the side slightly in time to see a crimson petal fall from her hair. She quickly remembered the flower and pulled it from her hair to see it withering. Without warning, she ran up the stairs and into her room, where she slammed her door shut. She jumped onto her bed before pulling a diary out from under her pillow. She hadn't writing in it since the day her father told her she was to be a shinobi for Kiri, and her training would be starting soon. While looking down at the flower, she smiled before feeling warmth cover her cheeks before she began to write. I met a boy today, but I didn't even get his name. He had shaggy blonde hair and a cute face with strange whisker marks on his cheeks, 3 on each cheek. He gave me this flower, and then saved my life not once but twice. I hope he's alright, and maybe if I become a shinobi I could see him again. That's it. No matter how much I don't want to be a shinobi, I'll shut those feelings out and do my best. May? A voice came from the door as a lovely woman stepped into the room. She had long black hair and silver eyes. Oh, she paused while looking up to her personal maid. She placed the flower in the diary and closed it, and placing it back under her pillow. May said before looking down at her hands, how are you? The woman seemed to smile brightly before walking into the room with a plate of food in her hand. She had been the only real family May even truly knew when it came to someone caring for her. Your parents were just looking out for your safety. If you hadn't snuck out into town today, none of this would have happened in the first place, the woman said while setting to food down and sitting on the edge of the bed with the young girl. It's not like I don't sneak out all the time. They never really cared then, and they don't know. They're just looking out for themselves, and that's all. She mumbled. The hurt in her tone was clear as she grabbed a pillow and pulled it to her chest to rest her chin on it and her knees. Is that so? Ami asked while raising an eyebrow. Well, then explain to me why your father is getting his katana and things ready to go inform the Mizukage of the Hokage's grandson? May's eyes shot open in shock as she smiled at the women in front of her. Really? She mumbled, only to see her silver eyes shut as she nodded and smiled. Would I lie to you, little one? I've always told you the truth, even when you were younger than you are now. Besides, I can tell you have a crush on the boy, she said, earning a crimson blush from the young girl. She put her face into the pillow and let out a slight shout, earning a laugh from the maid. It's nothing to be ashamed of, dear, just. She stopped and stood quickly while hearing their door kick open and shouts echoing through the halls of the large home. Get my wife and daughter out now! May heard her father scream, followed by footsteps flying up the hallway. May-san! A man's voice screamed down the hallway before a loud crash was heard, followed by the screams of a man. May stuttered as a chill ran up her spine at the screaming man's voice. Is that Keikuji? She asked while thinking of the other man that she had known all her life. The black-haired woman said nothing and stood and pulled her up from the bed. May didn't even realize that she had reached back and grabbed her diary before Amy opened her window and pulled her onto her back. Hang on to me, little one, she whispered before leaping into the darkness of their garden. She landed almost silently and crouched, placing May behind her and reaching into her black kimono and pulled out a short dagger. We will stay here until they leave, but if anything happens, run from here and get to the Mizukage, understood? May could only nod as tears began to flood her eyes. Where's my daddy and my mom? Are they still in the house? She asked, only to see a man slide through one of the paper doors and flip onto his feet. His arm was bleeding badly, and his grip on his blade seemed to be loosening as he panted for air. Give it up, old man. Is your pride worth your life? It's just money now, give it up, and we won't kill you, a man said while stepping through broken door. Amy froze along with May at the man's appearance. It wasn't that he looked dangerous, it was his headband. He was a Kiri shinobi. My pride is in both my property and family. You will not take anything, nor will you let me live anyways. The only reason you and your men are getting away with this is because of the uprising of the bloodlines. You'll blame it on them and get away richer men, am I right? What happened to the honor of the swordsman of the mist? You new so-called legends are only pebbles, compared to the true swordsman. Men like Zabuza will be remembered. You won't. Her father cursed, only to see the man pull his katana and vanish, appearing before May's father while smiling. May watched the blade shoot through his chest and out the other side, where he then twisted it before slowly pulling it out. Her body was dripping with sweat as she watched in horror. Her father fell forwards, blood dripping from his mouth, followed by 2 other men appearing holding her mother, who was also limp and bleeding badly. What should we do with this one, sir? They asked. He raised her jaw, pulling her gaze to his, and smiled. We could have some fun before she dies? Or maybe we should just kill her. Aimi tightened her grip on the dagger before glaring back at May. Stay here, she whispered before vanishing, leaving a crying May who could only watch as the men began to undress her mother, who mumbled for them to stop. She was too weak to fight back. Die! A woman's voice screamed as Aimi appeared behind one of the men and pulling his head to the side before slamming her dagger into his flesh, cutting his windpipe and jugular vein. She glanced to the left where the other man had dropped the dying woman and tried to strike her, but she quickly dropped down to the ground and began flipping back, only to feel the leader of the group grab her foot and pull her into the air, slinging her into the wall. With a forceful swing, she coughed loudly, trying to regain her breath, only to see the two men looking down at her. Maybe we should just use this one, she's much more beautiful, he laughed while pulling her up and ripping the upper part of her kimono off. May felt her dripping body throbbing as she continued to watch. Aimi glanced over at her, constantly holding her gaze as the men began to undo her cloths. No, her eyes said to the young girl, don't scream. But how could she not? Her mother and father were dying, and now the one person who showed her more love than anyone else in the world was being raped right in front of her. Stop! Aimi screamed while slapping at the man, only to see him laugh and continue. She looked back at May and noticed her stand slowly around the time the men dropped her to the ground and pulled up a katana. Time to die, whore, he whispered, only to hear a scream from behind them. They turned to see a young girl glaring at them. Leave her alone! She yelled, tears still falling from her eyes. Oh? You want to watch her die? Well then, here, he said while bringing his katana down at the woman's chest. Everything around May seemed to slow down, and before she knew anything her chest was burning. She needed to scream as loud as she could. She knew that's all she needed to do, and she did. Stop! Her voice rang out, followed by a strange mist firing towards the man. The katana was only inches from Aimi's chest when it stopped, and the man's screams filled the air. May watched as the strange mist left her body and began to eat away at the man's body. Before she could say anything, she felt someone wrap their arms around her and cover her ears. Aimi was at her side again, making sure she didn't hear the man's screams and the boiling of his flesh. What did she just do? Aimi asked, only to see the other Kirinin stumble away and flee the household. Child, close your eyes and keep them shut. We're going to the Mizukage now. Sarutobi. I'm truly sorry, Sarutobi, Yagura said while washing his bloody katanas. But we have scanned my entire village. He is not here. I'll have my men check the forest, but if he is there, there's only a slim chance of his survival. Sarutobi felt tears flow from his eyes as he leaned against a wall. He had promised Jiraiya he would watch after him, and he had failed. The sad part about this all is knowing the council and my people is they'll celebrate his death. The death of the Kyuubi, Sarutobi mumbled. He is the kindest soul I've ever known, and it's my fault he's gone. Yagura looked into the sky. This is why the bloodlines must die, Sarutobi, to prevent such slaughters and losses. The boy is only the start if we don't. If you don't control your shinobi better, then your nobles will be the first to die, a voice screamed from behind them. Standing was a raven-haired woman holding a young crimson-haired child who continued to cry. A group of Kiri shinobi attacked the Terumi family's estate and killed them, Aimi said, only to feel the world around her beginning to spin. Sarutobi noticed the gleam in her eyes and knew she was barely holding the two up. He vanished and appeared next to them, supporting their weight. Then he looked to the young girl. It seems we meet again, little one. There's no need to cry, you're safe now, he said, ignoring his own tears that continued to fall from his face. But you're crying as well. Why is that? She said, still sobbing but feeling something soothing about the man's smile. Well, I've seemed to lost track of the boy you met earlier. Wait, he saved me, she yelled, dropping down from Aimi's arms, who seemed to be trying to fight, passing out. Sarutobi pulled the women into his arms and signaled two of his Umbu medics to give her a look over. Tell me everything, child. I need to find Naruto. Naruto, she thought to herself, his name is Naruto, I like it. Naruto. Naruto opened his eyes to see the sun beaming through the mist. It was morning already. Haruo and Naruto have been in a boat sailing through the mist for what seemed like forever, and they both were enjoying the silence. The sounds of fighting and chaos wasn't something to be enjoyed, but soon Naruto heard the sound of rushing water. Well, we're here. Welcome to our little slice of paradise, Haruo said while making a few hand signs. Naruto watched as the mist cleared and the sight of whirlpools in the water caused him to panic, but he then noticed them slowing down and coming to a stop. It must be a jutsu, he said while looking up at the older man, who continued to smile. Naruto looked back to see a small island. The trees were tall like he would see in Konoha, and on a hilltop he could see what looked like a tower overlooking the entire island. What's that? Naruto asked, only to see the man smile and pull his staff into the air. A burst of chakra was shot from it, and into the air, followed by the tower letting off a slight glow. That's what protects our home. If I had not signaled them just now, they would have sent our shinobi, and well, they would have killed us, Haruo said, earning a cough from Naruto, who slightly paled. More men like you? Wait, shinobi? I thought only hidden villages had shinobi. Naruto said, a bit confused. He had read it in Sarutobi's book plenty of times, but that meant. Well, at one point in time we were a hidden village. Wait, he paused while looking down at the blonde child. I never caught your name, kid, although you look familiar. Naruto shined his usual smile while scratching the back of his head. Oh, my name's Naruto Uzumaki. He yelled, only to see the man's eyes grow wide as he looked across the boat at the boy. What did you just? Where did you hear that last name? You're a spy, aren't you? He yelled while standing and pulling his weapon into his hands. Naruto went pale as the blade sat inches from his eye. What had he said wrong? He asked his name, and he gave it. And my name? It's my name. I've had it since I was born. Naruto yelled, trying to inch away. Who are your parents, boy? Speak now. My parents? Naruto paused while looking away. I don't know. I was raised by the old man, and Kurenai-san was the closest thing I had to a mother. I would say the Sarutobi would be the closest thing to a father I ever had, but, well, he is way too old, so he's more like my grandpa. Jiraiya is too pervy to be a father figure, and well, Kakashi would be like an uncle, Naruto said, naming off everyone he considered family, only to see a shocked look spread across Haruo's face. And Naruto? Jiraiya as in the Toad Sannin, Kakashi as in the son of the White Fang and the student of Minato Namikaze, and Sarutobi as in the third Hokage. Naruto finished while nodding. Those are my precious people, add Kurenai-san. The man dropped his weapon and plopped back, still looking at the blonde with a gaze mixed with shock and sadness. I only saw your father once, and you look just like him, boy, though you have your mother's nose and attitude. And my mother? And father? You knew them? Naruto yelled while sitting up quickly, only to feel the boat hit land. Come with me, you need to meet someone, boy. Naruto walked through the village and was amazed at how beautiful it was. Every home had a garden or something to make it unique. The people all seemed happy and carried themselves with confidence. It was like nothing he had ever seen. In Konoha there was always conflict with the clans or in the markets. People would shout and glare, but here there was an uncontrollable feeling of comfort in the air. Wow, I didn't realize how big that tower was. How come no one else can see it from any of the other islands? Naruto asked. Well, the islands around us don't rise high enough. When we moved here many years ago after a war, but this isn't a history lesson, kid, he explained, only to see Naruto's eyes fill with more questions. Why doesn't anyone know you exist? Haruo paused and looked back at the boy and crouched down. Our people grow most of their foods, Naruto. To the west there is a small town that sells many things. Each month we head into land and sell some of our goods for money to buy things we need. We have everything a large-scale village would, but we keep to ourselves, and of course if someone wanted to find us they would need a large knowledge of water jutsu. Around this island the currents flow in a circle, throwing anyone off track that might be looking for us, and if they get past that we have those whirlpools placed around the island. The island we lived on before this was the same way without the flowing current. This village is what remained of what we called the hidden whirlpool. Now, child, no more questions. The person you're about to meet is. He paused while hearing a woman's voice. Father? She said while walking from a shop, smiling slightly. Ah, my dear, he said, standing and hugging the girl. When did you get back? We were worried about you. Did you get any information on the blood purge while you were gone? She asked, altogether getting a laugh from the man. Child, you ask more questions than anyone I know, or well, at least that is until now. He paused while stepping back and sticking his weapon into the ground. I have someone you should meet. He stepped out of the way, revealing Naruto, who seemed to look a bit embarrassed. The woman before him was very beautiful, like Kurenai, only in a more innocent and gorgeous way. Her long orange hair hung down to her lower back. Her eyes were a dark blue, and she was dressed like her father with a long blue weapon on her back. Her eyes seemed to go wide as she looked down to the whisper-marked child before her. It was like seeing a ghost. Her cheeks seemed to grow red as her skin paled slightly. Tears whelmed into her eyes, but she didn't move. Go ahead, kiddo, tell us your name, Haruo said. Naruto then noticed people gathering around the group and watching with curious eyes. Naruto said, cursing Haruo. He was worse than Sarutobi when it came to embarrassing him. He swallowed the lump in his throat and let a bright smile shine. My name's Naruto Uzumaki. The women felt her world explode around her as tears fell from her expressionless face. Her mind echoed with the memories of her past. Flashback. Naruto? Jiraiya said, earning a nod from Minato. That's right, sensei, we've decided to name him after your character. When he's born his name will be Naruto Namikaze. Flashback end. And Naruto Uzumaki? She asked, taking a slow step towards the young boy. You mean Namikaze? Namikaze? But Aji-san and Arosage. Naruto paused as his eyes grew wide in shock. Wait, Namikaze is the fourth Hokage's last name, Minato Namikaze. He's like my role model. If I had a hero, it would be him, Naruto said, smiling and laughing. The woman fell to her knees in front of the child and placed her hands on his shoulder, looking into his eyes. Naruto, she said softly, the reason he's your hero is because he's your father. She paused, noticing his eyes grow wide in shock. She pulled him into her arms where his body seemed to twitch slightly. And I'm your mother, Naruto. My name is Kushina Uzumaki. And I've thought you've been dead for 6 years. Mei sat next to Aimi as she slept in her hospital bed. She had bruises around her neck and all over her body, but the doctors said she would be fine. Mei hadn't slept all night. How could she? Witnessing her mother and father dying and Aimi getting wrapped was enough to cripple most children's hearts, but she made herself promise that she would stay strong. The Mizukage said that he himself had found the last member of the group and killed him, but how could she be satisfied? She couldn't. I need to get stronger, she said to herself. I don't ever want to see anything like that happen to anyone I care for ever again. If it takes me being a shinobi, I'll do it. Aimi's voice rang to the girl's ears like an angel's trumpet. She looked down to see her silver eyes gleamed slightly as she smiled up at the girl. Are you alright? I am fine, Aimi-san, but I need you to promise me something. Mei paused, earning a nod from the women. Anything, she whispered through chapped lips. When you're better, train me. I want to be a shinobi. I want to get stronger. Sarutobi. Report, Yagura said while standing with Sarutobi. 2 men came in holding a man who looked like his jaw had been shattered. We encountered a child and another man wielding a spear, one said. Yagura's attention was caught by the mention of the spear. A child, the Hokage said while gripping his jacket. What did he look like? Where was this? Tell me. About a mile away from the dock, sir. The man with the spear did this to our friend here, and the boy slung a rock at me like it was a kunai. He had blonde hair and I believe blue eyes with whisker marks on his face. They might have been birth marks. What happened? Well, we were forced to retreat. We thought they might be dirty bloods, but the man with the spear was powerful. After that, I'm not sure, but the killer intent coming off that man was unreal. Sarutobi fell back against the wall, cursing out loud. Yagura allowed the men to move on and walked back to the Hokage, placing a hand on his shoulder. I'm sorry, but if he was with someone else, then who knows what could have happened. Sarutobi rubbed his eyes while looking to the sky. It's time I returned to Konoha with the bad news, or in my people's case, good news. But sir, a voice came from the shadows. The hawk Mastambu stepped out, pulling the mask from her face. She was nursing her chest as she looking into his eyes. We can't just leave Naruto, he could still be alive. And if he is, my men will find him, Yagura said, only to receive a glare from the women. Her crimson eyes let off a slight shine, only to feel a hand on her shoulder. Kurenai, I'm sorry, I know you cared for the boy, Sarutobi said, only to feel a hand slam across his face. Care about the boy? You made me love him. And now, well, I do. I loved him. I cared for him as if he was my own child. I held him as he cried and bled, and now you're telling me that we will leave him to the care of shinobi who kill random civilians and people with bloodlines because their leader is scared. She screamed, directing the last bit at the Mizukage, who raised an eyebrow at the women. I'm sorry, Yagura, Sarutobi apologized, only to see him raise his hand. It's no problem, some people can't understand my goals and I accept that. I also feel for Naruto. The fact that he had such a woman care for him so much is a blessing. It's easy to say people like me and Naruto don't usually get that kind of attention. He paused, still holding Kurenai's gaze. But I won't be fake with you, if my men haven't found him in 2 weeks, even with his training, he's as good as dead. Naruto. Why, you're my mother? Naruto asked, tears swelling in his eyes. And the fourth, he's my father? Yes, and this is your grandfather, Kushina said, looking up to Se, her smiling father, but back to Naruto, only to see him glaring at her. Where have you been all my life? I've been hated, beaten, cursed. I've never had any friends. Kurenai-san, I looked up to her as a mother figure, and the old man Jiraiya, Kakashi, and Itachi even. They were there for me. Where were you? Well, hold on, boy, you've got to know the details, Haruo said, only to see Kushina shake her head while she held the blonde. He's right, Dad, she said softly. Naruto's eyes were now wide with shock. He could feel her tears wetting his shirt and neck as she held him. Naruto, when your father came to me and took you with him, he said that everything would be alright. He said he would watch over us, and I believed him. What are you talking about? Naruto yelled in frustration and pushed away from the women. He took me from you? Why would he take me from you? What's going on? You're not making any sense. Naruto, why, you don't know? Her eyes were wide with shock as she looked at the clueless blonde. Tears still fell from her eyes as she looked into his watering gaze. No, what? Naruto yelled. That your father sealed the Kyuubi no Yoko into his own son, sacrificing his life to save the village and his family, Haruo said while crossing his arms. Kushina quickly stood and slapped her father before turning back to Naruto to see him blankly staring at nothing. Naruto felt his heart stop as the hate-filled glare he had received all his life flashed before his eyes. Demon, they'd all screamed monster. Killer! It was because he was the Kyuubi? Haruo simply shook the stinging of his cheek off and continued. What he needs to know, it's been what? 6 years? Minato promised my daughter you would be fine, but when he sealed the Kyuubi away before his physical body vanished, it collapsed onto the cave holding you. You were supposed to be dead, boy. They looked for you for 2 days and never found your body. Think of how she felt. Could you live with yourself? Could you stand at the graves of your son and lover knowing that you were alone, not to mention her emotional state was already wrecked from being pregnant, and just having you? He paused while silently asking himself why he had said that before continuing. Minato, Sarutobi, Jiraiya and a few others were the only ones who even knew Kushina existed. Without Minato there to protect her, she was nothing but a woman who didn't belong in Konoha, so she returned home where she wouldn't be alone. I found her, and she was a shell of what she used to be, he explained, only to see Naruto fall to his knees, tears falling from his eyes. I am the Kyuubi, he whispered before shivering and feeling his stomach churn with nausea. I am a monster, my dad made me into a monster, he mumbled only to feel a hand on his cheek. Your father saved our lives, as did you. Your father trusted that his son would be strong enough to not become the monster, to not give in to Kyuubi's power. You are the real hero of Konoha. You are Minato Namake's son and my baby boy, Kushina said softly while holding back her sobs. And I'm deeply, so deeply sorry I didn't return. I'm sorry I never checked, but I couldn't go back there, not after risking everything to be with your father, and then losing you both. Risking everything to be with my dad? Naruto thought to himself. What could she have meant by that? Before the young boy could ask, he felt everything inside him erupted. He was tired and didn't want to fight them anymore. He gave in to his emotions, and before he knew what he was doing, he was shouting. You still left me. All my life I've watched others and cried because they had something I never would. A family. And people to play with. You left and never thought about me. His eyes were puffy from his tears and he felt like he was going to collapse when me and the old man left Konoha. It was amazing. The people here don't beat me. I don't need to cry. And I don't have to believe you when you say you're sorry, not until you show it. Everyone grew quiet as Kushina's bangs fell over her eyes. Naruto realized what he had just said and felt his legs beginning to shake. He lifted his hands only to see everything start to grow blurry around him. I am so sorry, he mumbled while stumbling a bit. But before he could finish, everything went dark around him. The last thing he heard was the women screaming his name. Kushina moved quickly and caught Naruto's limp body. She raised her hand to his forehead and froze instantly. What's wrong? Haruo said as the crowd began gathering around closer. He's burning up. We have to get him to a doctor, she yelled before standing and lifting him up into her arms and began running down street and through the crowd. Sir, are you sure we can return back to the mansion at any time? We have no right to burden, Aimi said, only to see the young Mizuki smile while shaking his head in refusal. It's nice to have company I can trust. Aimi-chan and Mei doesn't need to return to a place where she witnessed such things at her age. You can both stay here for as long as you wish, Yugura said, smiling at the young women. Aimi felt a soft, warm blush cover her face as she nodded and bowed her head. Thank you, Mizuki-sama, she said formally. Yugura frowned slightly while raising her jaw and looking into her eyes. Being Mizuki isn't all about formalities, Aimi-chan. You can call me Yugura. And also, is it your intention to train Mei-san? He asked while gently pulling his hand away from her jaw and holding her silver-eyed gaze. Aimi didn't know if she was to be frightened of him or flattered. She had heard so many stories about the man being ruthless and insane, but he was so kind. Yes, Yugura. As she paused before smiling, Yugura-kun, she asked me to help her get stronger, although I'm not sure how much I can help her. Aimi finished. Yugura's eyes were a bit caught off guard by the kun placed at the end of his name. It was a good change. Don't say that. You're a great shinobi, and she could learn much from you, but would you mind me helping with the training? He asked once again, noticing the young woman flinch. I'm sorry if I seem strange by asking, it's just I find myself very bored lately and Mei-san has caught my attention. She is a very determined young girl and I want to help her in any way possible for what my men did. Aimi could feel the honesty in his tone and smiled before nodding. I'm sure she'd love to have you as a teacher, Yugura-kun, but I should go check on her. She hasn't been sleeping a lot lately. If you would like, I'll let you tell her about your assistance in her training, Aimi said, smiling. Yugura's eyes were round as he turned his head away quickly, hiding the blush on his face. That's not necessary, you can tell her, he stuttered while picking up a scroll from his desk and acting like he was about to do something with it. Aimi smiled while taking a few steps backwards and opening the door. No, Yugura-kun, it would mean a lot more to her coming from the Mizuki. Trust me, she's a soft child at the moment, but she has a lot of pride ready to be released inside of her. You could help with that. And with those words said, the raven-haired woman shut the door, leaving the Mizuki alone in his office. Pride? Yugura's head throbbed as a crimson orb filled his thoughts along with a voice from his past. Make me proud. His face was painted in horror before he shook his head quickly while chuckling to himself to try and remind him of the little sanity still remaining inside him. What am I thinking? Naruto. Kushina sat over Naruto while placing wet rag over his forehead. The doctor was packing his things up and writing the bill out to Haruo, who stood at the door silently watching his daughter and sleeping grandson. There's no need to worry, it's just a little fever caused by him suddenly moving from his usual dry environment to a misty place like this. Not to mention he must have overexerted himself at one point because his body is slightly exhausted. The man paused and handed Haruo the bill, earning a nod from the older man. One more thing, he is still a child, and well, from what I heard he must be a little aghast. It's not every day you learn that something like the Kyuubi no Yoko is sealed inside. You give him time to rest, and make sure if he needs someone to talk to, you'll be there for him. Children can play grown-up all they want, but when it comes down to it they still need their parents. Kushina gripped the blanket of Naruto's bed tightly. Her bangs fell over her shame-filled eyes as she waited for the doctor to leave the room. Haruo slid the door shut and stood for a moment, letting out a deep sigh before turning to his daughter. It's not your fault, he said softly, and placing a hand on her shoulder. Almost instantly, it was as if his touch triggered her tears. She began to sob. Who are you kidding? It's all my fault. I shouldn't have been such a child and stayed and gone to Minato-kun's funeral. But when Sarutobi told me Naruto wouldn't be buried with his father, I was so angry I couldn't, she said, stopping a few words early to release her feelings. Haruo sighed slightly before pulling her into his arms and patting the back of her head softly. He had seen her like this once before when she returned from Konoha. He had told her if she went to Konoha then she could never return, but when he saw her heartbroken standing in the rain, no father could send his own daughter away after that. He had known Minato from a distance, as he knew him. They only spoke through letters, but to say they had a father-in-law relationship was wrong. But after hearing Kushina's story, he wished he could have shook the boy's hand. Because of him his daughter was alive, and now his grandson. He loved you both, dear, and he did exactly what my father did for your mother and you. There is no better sacrifice to be made than for those you love, and he knew that. I'm sure he had regrets, but in the end his resolve was strong enough, Haruo said, smiling. But I stomped on it. He died knowing Naruto would be alright, but did he? He was cursed, beaten and hunted, and I let that happen. She yelled only to stop at a mumbled from behind them. Her teary eyes turned to show the sleeping blonde mumbling in his sleep. Dad, his dry voice whistled, is it really you? Well, it's either a dream or I'm here. What does it matter, kiddo? Minato said while sitting across from Naruto, who was sitting up from the ground. Between them was a campfire that seemed to be burning brightly. But it's gotta be a dream. You're the fourth Hokage. You couldn't be my father. Naruto's eyes were void of all emotion as he began to glare into the darkness. And if you are my dad, then you doomed me from birth. You know, for a 6-year-old you speak like you're grown, Minato said while shining a flashy smile at the boy. His attitude was childish, which shocked Naruto. He figured his father to be the type of man who put duty first. I had to grow up fast. When you're beaten from birth, it takes a strong mind to stay alive, Naruto explained, only to see the man's eyes become hard. They looked into Naruto's as if he was digging through his mind for something. Naruto, I spent my entire life wishing I could stay young and act childish but still be strong. In the end I managed to pull it off pretty well. I would always make fun of Sarutobi and Jiraiya for being so level-headed and rash, but in the end I was the one who got things done. That might be why your mother loved me so much, and it's the reason you're so strong, he said while smiling. Naruto felt like he was looking in a mirror. You even have my smile, kid, although I think I was more of a cry-baby than you are, which has me worried. That has you worried? Naruto yelled while standing up and balling his fists. He was shivering slightly and noticed the flames of the fire dim a bit. Strong people don't cry. I don't want to cry anymore. It's childish? Minato finished while standing and taking a step towards the fire. No, Naruto. When we cry we are being strong because we're crying for a reason. When I knew what I had to do to save you and your mother, I couldn't stop crying. Same goes for Sarutobi and Jiraiya-sensei. When you cried with Kurenai-san, how did you feel? Protected? Safe? All around better? You say you have to be strong, but people who don't let things out end up being cold and empty, and you, my boy, are nothing like that. What do you know? You're fake anyways. This is a dream. You act like you've been watching me from day one, Naruto yelled, only to see Minato reach through the fire. His hand glided towards his cheek, but when it should have touched it simply passed through, leaving a cold kiss on his cheek. That's because I have been now, kid, wake up, but remember you're still. Minato paused as everything around them began to dim, leaving him standing in the flames, just a child, and there's nothing wrong with that. Wait. Dad. Naruto mumbled in his restless sleep. Kushina quickly pulled the cover from him and looked in amazement at the seal on his gut, shining dimly until it finally returned to its black tattoo ink look. Slowly she placed a hand on Naruto's forehead and could feel his body cooling by the second his breathing began to slow until it was normal along with his heartbeat. She gently lowered her forehead to Naruto while rubbing his cheek. Tears fell from her eyes onto his cheeks as she cried. "Minato, I know you're here, so just help me," she whispered before kissing the boy on the forehead. "Help me protect him. This is your chance to right everything, dear. This is your chance to raise the boy and protect him just like Minato knew you would. I'm going into Kuri to see if I can get any word about the boy being looked for. If he was with the Hokage, I'm sure there is a search party." Konoha. Sarutobi slowly walked through the gates of his home and could feel the chill of winter approaching early this year. He looked up and could see Minato standing with Kakashi and Asuma. Kurenai pushed past her Hokage while removing her mask and dropping it to the ground. Her bangs covered her eyes, but the tears could be seen from everything. She didn't waste her time with hellos and simply made her way past the welcoming group, which struck Jiraiya as strange, but then noticed Naruto wasn't with them. "Oh no," Kakashi said softly. Asuma had already realized what it must be and was running after the women only to see her stop and stumble a bit before he caught her. "It's not fair," her screams echoed, bringing a cold chill up Jiraiya's spine. "Where's Naruto?" Jiraiya said, holding his firm glare on Sarutobi's as he stood motionless. A heavy breeze pulled any fallen leaves into the air along with heavy dark clouds that covered the sky, blocking out the warmth of the sun. "I'm sorry, my boy, but it seems we will be placing yet another student into their final resting place," the old man said while raising his head. Tears fell from his eyes that were filled with shame and regret. "I couldn't protect him. The funeral is in 2 days. The rain hadn't stopped in 2 days, and on top of the Hokage's mansion stood only a few people. Even over the roar of the rain, you could hear the cheers of the village. They hadn't stopped for 2 days and wouldn't stop until Naruto's grave was filled with his belongings. Kurenai stood alongside Asuma, Kakashi, and those who worked in the Hokage's mansion who learned to love Naruto. The shinobi were all told to attend it, but only a few came. Jiraiya stood next to Sarutobi, who held a rose in his grip. Blood could be seen dripping from his palm, but he paid no attention to it. The rain hid his tears and only fueled his urge to bath in his sorrow. In the distance, a figure stood on top of the 4th Hokage's head, glaring down at the mansion. Crimson eyes continued to look upon the scene, never blinking. "Naruto-san," he said softly, only to look over his shoulder to see a man appear out of nothing. His face was covered in an orange mask. "Itachi, I put you in charge of watching the boy, didn't I?" he asked. The irritation could be heard in his tone. "Yes, you did, but unfortunately by the time I returned to the village I learned of the Hokage taking him along with him to Kuri," Itachi explained, never taking his eyes off the mansion. Madara eyed the man with his right eye and smirked slightly. "Are those tears, Itachi?" he asked with a chuckle in his tone. Itachi's eyes cut quickly and began to change. Itachi locked his eyes with Madara's as bloody tears began to drip from his right eye. "You of all people know my reasons for doing what I did, Madara. So don't play your games around me, please. We've already been down this road and you know you can't get into my head even with your all-powerful eye," Itachi said calmly before turning away. "And for the record, that mask is terrible." Madara simply watched as Itachi vanished, leaving him alone on the head of the 4th Hokage. He crouched down and pulled a kunai. Minato, if not for you I would already be closer to my plan, and now the brat you sealed the Kyuubi into is gone. That leaves me asking, where's the Kyuubi's yang?" With that, the man stabbed his kunai into the statue's head before vanishing. Moments later, a group of Anbu appeared with their weapons drawn. "No one is here," a man in a bear mask said. "Over here," another said before pulling the kunai from the stone. "Let's head back. We should report this to the Hokage." Sasuke slowly walked out into the rain and up onto the top of the mansion. It was deserted, leaving only Naruto's belongings in a coffin and a picture of him with a few flowers on top of the grave. He stood motionless, looking down at the blonde's picture. "I never really knew you, but my brother would talk about you when we would train," Sasuke said in a dull tone. "He said I should befriend you since you've never had anyone except for those who looked after you. He cared about you, and for that I'm glad you're gone." Sasuke paused. Lighting flashed behind him as he looked down at Naruto's picture and gave it a hard kick, shattering the glass. "Anyone Itachi ever cared for can't be trusted, and until I kill him everyone's my enemy. I envy you, Naruto. At least you got to die." The moon lit the small island that Haruo's people had come to love. He stood on the deck of his home looking over the garden Kushina has tended to since she returned. The aroma from the flowers would always flow through the area at night, giving anyone near it a soothing sensation, something he knew she needed right now. Just by taking one glance at the women, you could see her heart was getting heavier and heavier with every beat. Guilt is a powerful emotion, especially when affecting someone with a pure heart like his daughter. Naruto had been sleeping for almost 2 days now, and she hasn't left his side for more than a few minutes. He took in one last deep breath of the rich garden before turning and walking back into his home. He made his way down to hallway but came to a stop outside the room that was now Naruto's. "Your father was a true klutz," Regardless of all his strength and talent, he could hardly walk in a straight line. Kushina chuckled to herself while running a hand through his hair. I remember Jiraiya-san telling me how much of a pain he was to train. At first I didn't believe him, but after spending more time with him it was easy to see why. It was silent for a moment, and Haruo knew why. He watched his daughter's shoulders shudder slightly, followed by her sobs. Please, Naruto, she cried, forgive me. Haruo silently walking into the room and stood behind her. His eyes were soft and caring, but he knew how his daughter was. She wasn't one to ask for help even when it's needed. It's been 3 days since you've gotten any sleep, dear, Haruo said quickly. Kushina flinched but didn't turn towards him. The dark circles under her eyes would only prove his statement. How can I sleep when my child's sick, she argued while clearing her crackling voice. Haruo closed his eyes and walked to the closet door. The same way you mother and I did when you were lay you head down and close your eyes, or I could assist you with a few needles, but we both know my aim isn't all that good, Haruo said while flashing a scary smile and walking back out of the closet holding a pillow and blanket. Kushina felt a chuckle lift from her chest while she whipped her eyes. Fine, but I'm not leaving this room, she stated, only to feel the blanket drop over her shoulders and a pillow placed next to Naruto's arm. That's fine, just please sleep tonight. Who knows, maybe he'll be up and about when you wake up. I'm going to head into town for a few hours and see if I can get some info on Naruto. You keep resting. Kushina nodded while laying her head onto the pillow. She hated when her father was right about things like this, and before she knew it she was fast asleep holding Naruto's hand. I'm not a monster! Naruto screamed at the crowd around him as they cursed and threw rocks and glass bottles at him. Leave me alone! Naruto said again in a growl. He felt his body growing warmer and warmer but paid no attention to it. Die, demon! A man said while throwing a rock towards the child. Naruto watched as if in slow motion the stone struck his forehead, cutting deeply into his skin, but surprisingly he didn't fall. I am not a demon, Naruto mumbled to himself. I am not you. He let out a scream or a roar while throwing his head back. He could feel his heart beating like a rapid drum. His head felt like he was on fire. I am not you, Kyubi. Gah! Naruto gasped while shooting up from his bed. Sweat ran down his back, face and arms as he desperately tried to catch his breath. It was a dream, he said softly to himself. It helped calm him, so he said it once more. It was a dream. His heart rate slowed and he let out a deep sigh. Never in his life had he felt anything even close to the feeling he was having. It was like something was pushing from inside his body. Naruto, a voice mumbled to his right. Naruto quickly remembered what had happened to him and felt someone gripping his hand. He looked to see Kushina sleeping next to him and desperately holding onto his hand. She's been here the whole time, kid, a voice came from the door. Naruto looked up to see Haruo standing and smirking. Why, I'm fine, Naruto said in a low tone, trying not to wake his so-called mother. Well, she did. I finally got her to get some sleep a few hours ago. It's been almost over 3 days since you passed out, and I see your temperature's finally broken, Haruo said, pointing out the sweat covering the sheets of the bed. Yeah, I guess, look, I know you mean well by helping me, but I just want to go home. Aji-san and the others are probably worried about me, and I need to know if Kazan is alright, Naruto said softly. Haruo flinched a bit before lowering his gaze from Naruto's. You sure about that, Naruto? It's been 3 days, almost 4, since everything happened. Even for a skilled child like you, the survival rate for you being on your own in the wilds is low, especially with the blood purging, Haruo explained. He didn't want to tell Naruto what he had heard from in town, but if it came down to it he would tell him. It's fine, once I'm back everything will go back to normal, right? Naruto asked with a soft smile. The hope he held in his eyes was weak, as if he wasn't sure if he even wanted to go back. Haruo let out a deep sigh and walked over to his sleeping daughter. He motioned Naruto to get out of the bed, and he did while gently pulling his hand free. Haruo picked her up slowly and began walking from the room. Naruto followed the two slowly and looked at how amazing the house was. It was like the Uchiha compound's head house. He remembered Itachi showing it to him. They came to a door and stopped. Naruto opened it for the older man and watched as he gently placed Kushina in the bed and covered her up. She sleeps like a rock. I remember when she was younger I would end up doing this all the time. She would train herself to the point of exhaustion, Haruo explained, only to hear the women whimper a bit and grip at his shirt. Don't die, Minato, Naruto, she mumbled with tears forming in her eyes. Haruo gently placed his hand on her cheek and began whispering something to her. Naruto felt his gut grow heavy. The pain and sorrow in her tone was enough to bring tears to his eyes. No, Naruto said to himself before pushing the feeling away. She left me, I can't forgive her. Haruo calmed her and walked from the room, pulling Naruto with him. You need to know something, Naruto, he said while opening another door that led to the garden. Naruto stopped and went wide-eyed at the sight. Crimson flowers were everywhere, and the aroma hit him like there was an invisible wall. He felt his body relax as he took in the scent. Haruo noticed this and smirked. This is your mother's work. She loved these flowers. Sarutobi told me about these. Naruto interrupted him while walking over to one and smelling it. Instantly he was reminded of the girl he ran into and blushed slightly. These are my mom's favorite, that's what Ojizan told me, Naruto said before looking back at Haruo, who nodded. That's right, but Naruto, you need to know something before you talk about going home. Haruo's tone was serious now. There was no smirk on his face, and his eyes remained locked with the blonde's. I went into town for information on the situation between Kiri and Konoha, and well, Konoha's never been better, Haruo said softly, earning a raised eyebrow from the boy. What's that mean? Naruto asked. It means I was making sure there wasn't going to be any conflict between the villages since you were so close to Sarutobi. He paused for a moment. His expression was that of someone who couldn't find the right words, or they knew what to say and just simply couldn't. What is it? Naruto said again, earning a sigh from the older man. Your funeral was yesterday, Naruto. To them you're dead now, Naruto. The villagers have been having celebration after celebration non-stop, and Sarutobi is going to address them all today sometime when the sun comes up. I'm not sure what about, but it can't be good. I just hope he does go to war with Kiri or decide to help in the blood purges. Everyone you ever knew already thinks you're dead, child. If you were to return a place filled with people that are happy you're gone, it would only bring more violence towards you. I know it sounds harsh, but staying here would be the best thing for you. My people here hold no grudge against you or the Kyuubi. You would be one of use as you should be. I would train you and tell you our history, and if you wish it, I'd show you the arts of wielding a spear or halberd. Please, Naruto, don't make Kushina hurt anymore. I know she only wants what's best for you. No. Haruo slowly fell to his knees and placed his head on the ground. Naruto blushed, slightly embarrassed by the man's actions. I love my daughter with all my heart, and want her to be happy. You're her child and my grandson. Your father would want you safe, and so do I. Please, Naruto, stay here, and I promise you one day we will go to Konoha and see your precious people, Haruo said without looking up. Naruto continued to look down at the man. The emotions in his body were a mix between confusion, shock, embarrassment, and even pride. They really think I'm dead? Naruto asked, earning a nod from his grandfather Kurinia-san, the old man. Even the pervy sage, will I ever get to see them again? Naruto asked, slowly, scared of the answer he might get. Like I said, boy, Haruo said before standing and dusting his pants off, one day we will all return to that place, but for now you should remain here. I swear on my life I'll make you strong enough to show the world that you're not the Kyuubi if that's what you want, Haruo said, now looking down into Naruto's eyes. The old man could see the flash of emotions vanish in the child's eyes. Why do you care so much? Naruto asked while pulling his glare away from the old man's. Haruo let out an amusing chuckle before placing his hand on the child's hair and scuffing his hair. Naruto let out a childish whine while pulling his hand away. He looked up to see a smile on the man's face shining down at him. Because family is family, my family is everything to me, and I'll do anything to make sure they're happy and safe, and that my child is the code of which I live by. Konoha. You're sure about this? Jiraiya said while standing with his back against Sarutobi's door. The old man simply nodded while pulling scroll after scroll from his desk and putting them into his pockets. His heart was beating rapidly, and his hands shook rapidly as he forced back his screams of frustration. All my life I've treated this village like my family, but I've walked on Minato's memory for too long by letting these people damn Naruto as a demon, and now that he's gone I refuse to walk on his name as well, Sarutobi said while slamming his desk shut. Now walk with me to the clans. I need to have a chat with them, and get me Kakashi. I have a feeling you're going to be too lazy for the job. Sarutobi stood silently in front of his mansion and watched as Hayashi Hyuga appeared alongside Saminuzuka, Inoichi Yamanaka, Shikaku Nara, Chozo Akimichi, Asuma Sarutobi, and Shibi Aburame. They stood looking towards their Hokage with curious glares in their eyes. It wasn't every day he sent Jiraiya to find them for a special gathering. I was expecting this to be a party, but by the look in your eyes, Hokage-sama, this must be serious, some said in a scruffy tone. It appears that way indeed, Hayashi implied. We are waiting for a certain person to show up, and when he does I need you all to listen to what I have to say. After I address the village today, the council will order a meeting, and that is when we will all invoke our rights as clan heads and former Hokage, Sarutobi said, earning a shocked look from them all. He simply smiled at them while pulling a pipe from his jacket. What? I'm getting old, children. You didn't accept me to do this forever, did you? Yeah, actually, Asuma said, smiling, you still have more energy in those bones than most of us young people do. So tell us, father, what's going on? Sarutobi let out a small burning breath, catching flame to the tobacco in his pip before looking over his shoulder. You're late, he said with smoke poured from his mouth. Sorry, the road of life was screaming for me to turn the other way, Kakashi said in his usual sarcastic tone. What's this all about? Well, Sarutobi paused while looking back at his clan heads. Let's begin. The village gathered around the Hokage's tower, laughing and talking with everyone they knew so well. Sarutobi sat on the edge of the mansion's roof, looking out over them all. He held a dull look in his eyes as he listened to them talk. Everything's been so amazing since the demon died, a woman said while the men laughed and told jokes about the little monster. It was enough to make him sick. Of course, not everyone was a part of their gossip, but it was more than enough to make the old man's pride drain and be replaced with shame. Behind him were Jiraiya and Kurenai, who stood with empty eyes while looking over the people. "You're sure about this? Danzo will jump all over this chance to kill you and become Hokage," the sage said, earning a shrug from Sarutobi. "That's why we are leaving, Jiraiya boy. We have an old team to gather up, remember?" Sarutobi turned to Kurenai, who still remained silent. He walked to her and placed a hand on her shoulder. She flinched slightly before cutting her eyes to his quickly. "Protect Naruto." She remembered his order instantly. She felt her stomach twist and turn, followed by her healing wound burning slightly. "Kurenai dear, please understand none of this was your fault, and I'm deeply sorry for what I've done to you," Sarutobi said softly before bowing his head. "Naruto was like my grandson." "He was my son," Kurenai yelled while tightening her fists. 3 years. "He cried to me, he called me his cousin. I held him when he cried at night, and I bandaged his wounds, and now he's gone, and everyone I know couldn't be happier. It was my job to protect him. And it's my fault he's dead, so don't you dare." Kurenai paused while looking into the older man's eyes. She could see fresh tears forming in them as she smiled at her. Guilt washed over her as tears began to fall from her eyes. "I'm so forgive me," she mumbled, only to feel a hand on her shoulder. She looked to see Jiraiya shaking his head. "We all loved." Jiraiya stopped and realized tears were running from his eyes. He was so damn gifted, like his father. "I'm tired of watching my students die. I'm tired of failing to save my friends and watching the people I love walk away," he mumbled before pulling a book from his jacket. He opened it to see a name written on the cover. "Naruto," it read before he slammed it shut quickly. "Asuma feels the same way as you, Kurenai. The same goes for Kakashi, me, Sarutobi, and hell, even the clan heads, and they hardly knew him. What this village is doing is wrong. And I'll be damned if I'm going to stay in it any longer." "Then I'm coming to," Kurenai said quickly to the both of them, who seemed to glare at her for a short moment before Sarutobi shook his head. "No, everything is about to change, dear, and what would Asuma do without you? I know you're both quite fond of each other," Sarutobi said, earning a small blush from the women. "You'll stay here and help prepare the next generation. Hopefully they don't make the same mistakes as we old fools have." "Mistakes? You talk as if our village is in chaos, Hokage-sama," a voice came from the shadows. They all turned to see Danzo slowly walked from the darkness. Jiraiya felt his grip tighten as the man smiled at them. "If only you all would have left the boy in my care like I had asked, he would still be alive." "Yeah, and he would be a mindless puppet for your Roots ranks," Jiraiya said while smirking at the older man. "Enough, why are you here, Danzo?" Sarutobi asked while locking eyes with the man. "I had a feeling you would do something reckless, so I went ahead and called the council here." "What exactly were you all talking about up here?" he asked while raising his hand. Instantly 4 squads appeared surrounding all of them, followed by Sarutobi's old teammates entering the picture. If it isn't Danzo's puppets," Jiraiya said, earning a glare from the older council members. "Well, it seems they've caught me, but it doesn't matter. The village will know the truth behind Minato Namake's name," Sarutobi said while reaching in his pocket and pulling a scroll out. He threw it across the roof into the hands of Danzo, who raised his free and snatched it from the air. Slowly he opened it and allowed his eye to scan over the scroll. Suddenly his eye went wide with shock at the information he had just read. Not even he knew of Naruto's heritage. He looked back up to see Sarutobi holding another scroll up and looking towards his team. "This is the scroll we all signed to keep his name a secret, but since he's dead I see no reason for its existence anymore." Sarutobi took a large hit from his pip. The tobacco let off an orange glow before a small amount of flames launched from the pip and consumed the scroll. They all watched as it burst into flames and rolled to the ground. Jiraiya was simply smiling along with Sarutobi. Kurenai stood with a blank look on her face. She felt frustration building inside of her at the fact that she had no idea what they were talking about. "Now if you'll excuse me, I have a village to address and don't try to interfere." Sarutobi paused while reaching in his jacket and pulling out a kunai with a white tag on it. He threw it into the air and watched it let out a bright white shine. In a split second, Hayashi Hyuga appeared alongside Suminazuka, Inoichi Yamanaka, Shikaku Nara, Choza Akimichi, Asuma Sarutobi, and Shibi Aburame. "Make sure none of them cause any problems." "Wait, where is Kakashi?" Here a voice said as he stepped from a dark corner. Sarutobi smirked while walking to the corner of the building while looking down at the villagers. It was time to right the wrongs. If he could do one good thing as Hokage, this was it. "Why are you all doing this?" Danzo yelled in rage. The clan heads simply glared back at the man with a few chuckles from Choza and Sim. "Shut it, you old bag," Sim said with a low growl in her voice. "You people are the monsters, allowing the pup of our 4th Hokage to suffer like that. You make me sick." "We're all responsible for that, Sim, but no longer will I hold on to such guilt," Hayashi said, earning a grunt from Sim. Kurenai's eyes were wide as an image of Naruto's smile appeared before her eyes along with Minato's. He was his son. You'll all be punished for this. Danza yelled only to hear them all laugh. I do believe, Danza, that we are the clan heads of this village, not two senior citizens and a corrupt war veteran. Without us and our people this village would be nothing, Hayashi said while glaring at them all with his white eyes. Now Anbu, take these three away from our sight, we have a new Hokage to announce. Yes, Hayashi-sama, a few of the men said while bowing and grabbing the three elders. Danza pushed the men away while yelling towards the clans, if they leave this village they'll be marked as missing regardless of what you all say. They will be hunted. I pity anyone hunting my father, Asuma said, smiling slightly as the Anbu pulled the old man away. All eyes turned towards the Hokage as he stood over the people who no looked up at him. At his side stood Jiraiya, whose eyes scanned the area. It's time you all know the truth. It's time you all know what we've done. We all loved our fourth Hokage, this is a known fact. The man saved our lives and yet we spit on his final request, Sarutobi said while looking down at the now confused crowd. Is this about the demon brat? A man called out from the crowd, only to see Sarutobi glare down at him. Demon brat? He yelled, anger filling his eyes. Most of you people should be ashamed of yourselves. Do you even remember Minato's request? To treat Naruto as a hero, not a demon. And yet most of you continued to hate the boy. Why does it matter? A woman asked. I never hated the child, but since he's gone now, why are we still talking about it? Because those of you that have continued to celebrate his death bring shame to this village and the memory of the fourth, Sarutobi said with a cold look in his eyes. It was quiet as clouds seemed to block the joyful rays of the sun. Today I resign as the Hokage of the Hidden Leaf Village, and hereby name Kakashi Hatake the fifth Hokage of the Hidden Leaf. Now Kakashi, would you do the honors? Sarutobi looked back at Kakashi, who stood with his hands in his pockets. The crowd was speechless, unable to even comment on what was happening. Kakashi nodded while stepping out towards the crowd. He looked over them with his eye and let out a deep sigh. As you all know, my sensei was none other than the fourth Hokage. When he died, I promised him that I would watch after his son. Kakashi paused, noticing everyone's eyes grow wide. Naruto Uzumaki's true name was Naruto Namikaze, the son of the fourth Hokage, savior of the Hidden Leaf Village, container of the Kyuubi no Yoko. Congratulations, Leaf Village, you've been celebrating the death of the only son of one of the greatest men this world has ever known. The fourth Hokage's legacy is now dead. The crowd erupted in disgust, argument, and shouts. Liar! A man screamed along with another man who grabbed his collar. Don't call our Kage a liar, you fool! The crowd continued to argue until what sounded like a lightning strike silenced them all. They looked up to see Kakashi's arm glowing slightly as he looked down at them. Say what you want, but know this. Naruto was a kind-hearted boy who never hurt anyone. What some of you did to him is unforgivable. And I hope you can live with that. God knows I couldn't now return to what you were doing. He yelled and watched as the crowd slowly began to fade away, leaving only a few looking at the men on the rooftop. Kakashi watched as they fell down to their knees, one by one. Most of them were shinobi. Kakashi noticed a boy standing in the crowd and narrowed his eye. Sasuke Uchiha stood there, looking up at them. He held a troubled expression on his face before he turned away. Kakashi, Sarutobi said with a satisfied look on his face. Kakashi looked over to see the old man's eyes following Sasuke. He walked to Kakashi and got close enough to speak without anyone hearing. In my desk is a scroll at the very back of the third shelf. Take it out and undo the blood seal. Once you read it, you will understand what I'm saying. Make sure Danza does not get his hands on Sasuke, understood? He whispered, earning a nod from the silver-haired Hokage. Good. Now Sarutobi paused, looking back at Jiraiya. Do your job well, boy. Feel free to try and stop us. I wouldn't be doing my job very well if I didn't. Although I'm dreading it, Kakashi said, only to see a blur of white fly past Sarutobi. In mid-air, Jiraiya bit his thumb and made a few hand signs while laughing. Is he? Kakashi mumbled, only to see Sarutobi leap from the roof after Jiraiya. He has stopped them, Kakashi yelled, earning sighs from everyone. It's part of the job, Asuma said while nudging Shikaku, who seemed to be dreading the chase already. Besides, we don't have to try very hard, which is good in your case, Nara. Summoning jutsu, Jiraiya yelled as smoke filled the area. Kakashi's eye twitched as a loud shout of frustration filled the air. It was the big boss, Gamabunta. Jiraiya, why did you summon me again, you old fool? Gamabunta yelled while inhaling a large hit from his pipe. Hey there, old friend, Sarutobi said while landing next to Jiraiya. Sarutobi, Gamabunta said with a hint of respect for the older man. I take it we're escaping? The toad asked while looking at the approaching shinobi. Yup. I'll explain along the way. First things first, head east, we need to find a bar. Jiraiya yelled, only to see the toad exhale, filling the area with smoke. Asuma took a deep breath as he ran through the tobacco smoke, silently laughing at the others as they coughed. And you all said I should quit smoking? Kakashi walked into his office and instantly went to the desk and opened the shelf Sarutobi described. He pulled forth a scroll and laid it on the desk. Biting his thumb and placing some blood on the seal, he watched it roll open slowly. Slowly he read it before plopping down in the chair. Obito's eye seemed to twitch a bit as he sat silently in the office. Itachi, dear God, boy. How could they have made you do such a thing? Kakashi growled while gripping the scroll tightly. He dropped the scroll onto the desk and walked for the door with rage in his eyes. The last thing on the paper read, I, Itachi Uchiha, swear my loyalties to Konoha and will take this mission without shame, only pride. But I have one condition. My brother is the only exception. I will not kill him. I leave him in the care of Sarutobi-sama, who I trust will protect him from any harm. These are the only conditions I must have promised to me by Danzu. Kakashi burst from the mansion and vanished in a blur. The whole clan didn't deserve that. Kakashi's mind screamed in rage. Itachi didn't deserve that. Before Kakashi knew where he was, he had already arrived where Danzu and the council were being held by Hyuga and Bu. Lord Hokage, one spoke with respect for the silver-haired man. It would take a while to get used to that. Take me to them, and then leave me. I want no one near this area until I am done, understood? Kakashi said quietly, earning a nod from the man. He led him into a dark building before opening a door to reveal the three elderly hags. The door shut behind him as he glared at them with disgusted eyes. You should all be killed in front of the village for what you have done, Kakashi growled. Danzu thought the man might spit venom at any moment, which brought a smirk upon his face. Oh? Why is that, Lord Hokage? Danzu replied in a condescending manner. You used Itachi's pride for Konoha against him. He was just a child, you had no right. If you people would just have given them the rights they wanted and stopped treating them like dogs, then war could have been prevented, Kakashi yelled. Ah, so the old fool told you. Figures Sarutobi was always weak. He didn't want to go along with the plan either. Apparently he was somewhat close to the boy. When will you people understand? We shinobi are tools to protect and serve our village. Itachi was an excellent tool and served his purpose. Danzu was cut off by a hand around his neck and a blue glow filling the room. You make me sick. Danzu, being shinobi is so much more than being a tool. We protect out of love for our people, not out of duty. We serve to better ourselves and grow stronger, knowing that one day we could make a difference in our loved ones' lives. Your corrupt words forced Itachi to kill everyone he ever loved. And I'll be damned if I let you get your hands on Sasuke. I am not Sarutobi. Where he failed, I will not. From this day forth, you roots are disbanded. Anyone who is found within their ranks is dead if they resist. You are now stripped of your rank in this council, Kakashi growled. You can't do that, child, the elder council said together, only to see a crimson glare turn upon them. Oh, I can't? Let me spell things out for you. If you speak to me like that again and try to stop what I am doing here, the entire village will know what you three have done. I already told them about Minato. What makes you think I won't tell them this? Kakashi's words were filled with truth and rage, which was more than enough to shut up the old hags. He turned his gaze back to Danzu and pressed a finger to the latter's cheek, causing a small cut to appear. If I ever see your face again, I'll personally end your miserable life. Sarutobi is everything you can't be, including Hokage. But then again, that's why the second picked him and not you, isn't it? Kakashi said as he released the man whose eye now glared back at him with an equal amount of anger. Kakashi left the room and made his way down the hallway. Umbu! He called out, and three men appeared. Yes, Lord Hokage? Help Danzu clear out his office, then get a Biki to get him to tell us the location of Root's Hell. Get Inoichi to help him, Kakashi said while taking a deep breath to calm himself. Is that all, sir? A man asked, only to see Kakashi stop. No, get me Sasuke Uchiha. Tell him he will be staying with me from now on, Kakashi said, earning a nod from everyone before they vanished. Kakashi now stood in the streets of Konoha looking up at the dimming sunlight. Got a lot on your mind? A female voice called from behind Kakashi. He turned to see Anko standing and staring at him. You know, I can hardly believe Minato-kun actually had a son. I'm sure you're saying that same about me being Hokage, Kakashi replied, only to see her shrug. Maybe, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that you look like you need a drink. Small time jump, Kakashi sighed while sitting in his new office. It had been 2 months since Sarutobi and Jiraiya had fled the village after exposing Naruto's true father to the world. The news spread like a wildfire. Minato Namikaze had a son, Naruto Namikaze, people would say. It was amazing how quickly the people changed their ways. Flowers seemed to pile up higher and higher at Naruto and his father's graves every day. 7 years of regret is a hard thing to swallow, or so he was told. The only regret he had was not being there to keep his promise to his sensei. Hokage-sama, a woman said before appearing in the room. She had a hawk mask hiding her face. Yes, Kurenai? Kakashi said in a dull tone, earning a sigh from the women. I'm in ANBU, it's against regulation to us my real name, idiot. She yelled only to see the man's eye close slightly. He turned his head towards her with a dazed and confused look plastered across his face. Awesome movie LOL. I'm sorry, what? Don't treat me like I'm Guy. She yelled. He felt like laughing but knew it would only end badly. Swallowing his urge to annoy the women further, he let out a sigh. Fine, you win. What is it? We've got some leads on Jiraiya and Sarutobi's positions to the west. It seems they're on Orochimaru's trail, she explained. Well, they're missing Nin now, but Orochimaru is a bigger threat to Konoha. I'll inform the council of this information, but I want you to go to the Inuzuka clan and tell them to send a few hounds and trackers after them, but make it clear for them to not engage. Only observe and get as much information as we can on Orochimaru and any other threats, understood? Kakashi said, earning a nod from the woman. What about Danzu? His roots have been tracking them as well, don't worry about him. Half his unit is already being monitored or acting as my spies, we shouldn't have much of a problem with him. After what I have planned is accomplished, I'll make sure nothing is left of that bastard when I'm done with him. Kakashi paused as he heard a knock at the door. Come in, Kakashi said calmly. Sasuke entered the room. Oh, you're having a meeting, the boy said only to see Kakashi. I smile. It's fine, Sasuke-kun, it's time for our lesson again, isn't it? All right. Kakashi said in a cheerful tone as a clone appeared beside him without him making any hand signs. When are you going to show me how to do that? Sasuke asked only to see the man smile again. When you're older, Kakashi said simply. Whatever, Sasuke moaned while turning away only to see Kakashi nudge him. He looked back to the NBU and let out a sigh. Nice to see you, Kurenai-san, Sasuke said, earning a growl from the woman. Kakashi burst into laughter and ran through the door, pulling Sasuke behind him, grinning. Damn him, she thought to herself before vanishing into the shadows. We'll pick up where we left off, Kakashi said while standing across from Sasuke. They were in the forest somewhere outside of the village. You want to be like your brother, but you're already behind him in everything he achieved. You will not enter the academy until the last year. In that year you will have to take every exam the other kids have throughout the year. Your brother did it, Sasuke, and so can you, but your first step is awakening what's in your blood. Kakashi paused as Sasuke looked up at the man, his crimson eye staring back at him. Kakashi, you never told me about your eye, how did you get it? Sasuke asked. Kakashi was expecting the question to come at one point in time, but still wasn't ready to tell him. Then again, Kakashi wasn't really ever ready for anything. A friend gave it to me. As you know, my sensei was the fourth Hokage. Kakashi was interrupted. Naruto's father, Sasuke said while tightening his fists slightly. Yes. I had just made Jounin, and we were on a mission in the Stone Territory. Rin and Obito Uchiha were on this mission with me. I would always taunt him about his Sharingan not activating at his age. You could call us rivals if you wanted. Anyways, Minato-sensei wasn't on this mission with us and Rin was captured. We were given two choices, leave her to die and finish the mission or go and save her. Obito was the first to say we should save her, but I wasn't the same man back then. I told him the mission was more important, and for that he hit me. He said something to me I will never forget, and I want you to remember it as well. Those who abandon their mission are trash, but those who abandon their friends are worse than trash. We went after her, and were attacked along the way. I killed one of the men saving him, but then I was attacked by another man who gave me this scar. Kakashi paused, pointing at his eye. That's when Obito shocked even me. His Sharingan activated and he saved me. After that we bandaged my eye and went after Rin. We managed to push her attackers back, but when we were fleeing the cave a man outside brought it down on top of us. I was hit by a rock and knocked unconscious, and Obito ran back and threw me out of the way of a large boulder and saved my life, sacrificing his own. The stone crushed the right side of his body, but before he died he told Rin to take his eye and give it to me so he would always be with me. He loved Rin, and come to find out he loved me like a brother. Rin did as she was told, and I emerged from the cave and killed the man. But even after I got my revenge, I felt like I wanted more. I wanted more blood until I noticed the tears still falling from Obito's eye. Revenge isn't worth the sacrifice, Sasuke. I want you to always remember that, understood? Kakashi said calmly. Sasuke looked up at the man to see slow but steady tears falling from his eyes. Sasuke thought of his father. He wanted me to come after him, Sasuke said in a dull tone. He wants me to kill him, Sasuke yelled. He didn't leave you alive for that reason, Sasuke. He couldn't kill you. Because you are all that mattered to him. You are his little brother, you mean more to him than anything else. Do not let your heart be corrupted by rage and hatred, understood? I will make you strong, but I need you to stop hating him, Kakashi yelled. How could I stop hating him, Kakashi? He killed them. He even killed the girl he said he loved. No name. I saw them together, the look in his eyes when they kissed. He loved her. He loved me. But he said it was all a lie, and the look in his eyes when he said that was empty. He wasn't the same Itachi, he wasn't my brother, Sasuke said as tears began to fall from his eyes. Then what do you want, Sasuke? Tell me what you truly want more than anything, Kakashi yelled while grabbing Sasuke's arms. Every happy moment Sasuke ever had flashed through his mind. The pride he felt when he performed his first fireball jutsu, the amazement of Itachi doing his training, the loving smiles from his mother. I want my brother back, Sasuke screamed while opening his eyes and looking up at Kakashi. Kakashi felt a smirk crawl across his face as he looked into the boy's eyes. Sasuke looked into the reflection of the man's eyes and felt his voice hitch. Your eyes don't lie, Sasuke, Kakashi said, smirking. Your first step of catching up to your brother is complete. Mai-san, are you ready? Yagura asked while tightening his grip on his katana. The 7-year-old girl nodded to her Kage and watched as he leaped towards her and began to speak to her as she leaped back from his strike. Tell me now, what is your tactic when fighting a male who is larger and physically stronger than you? The man said, only to see her vanish and appear behind him. Surprise is my best option, keep my distance, and she paused while throwing a kunai, strike when he least expects it. Yagura smirked and dodged the kunai only to see the young girl smirk and sling yet another kunai twice as quickly. It hit her other kunai and deflected it back towards the Kage. The man smirked before quickly snatching the kunai from the air and pausing. The girl stood in a low stance in her battle kimono. He could see the determination in her eyes as she looked up at him. You've already come a long way, child, but for now let's return to the mansion. I'm sure Aimi has a few things to teach you and dinner is in a few hours, Yagura said, followed by seeing her smile slightly and stand up straight. Do you really think I've gotten better, Yagura-kun? She asked, earning a bright smile and a nod from the man. Your rational thinking is that of an adult's. You're smarter than Aimi-chan, and when it comes to your determination and ruthlessness you could scare even me when you get older, Mei-chan. And now let's go. I promised Aimi I wouldn't keep you out late again, Yagura explained, which was followed by the girl smiling and jumping onto his back and hugging him tightly. He began laughing as she wrapped her legs around him. It all felt fake to the man, but at the same time he knew it was something he wanted. Still, it is hard to know what you want when you've never had that certain something. Naruto stood holding a long bamboo pipe in his hands, panting for air. Across from him stood both Kushina and Haruo, each holding the same weapons in their hands. Control your breathing and concentrate, Naruto, Haruo said while glaring at the young child. Your taijutsu is already very impressive for a 6-year-old boy, and your knowledge of the shinobi arts is also impressive. You know what it takes to be a shinobi, but you need to have what it takes. Push yourself to your limit, and then break that limit. Stop talking, old man, Naruto mumbled, earning a smirk from the aged shinobi. Kushina smirked slightly while watching her son straighten his back. He popped his neck for a moment, and looked down at the bamboo in his hands. In a swift movement he raised it above his head and brought it down over his leg, snapping it in 2 pieces. Haruo raised an eyebrow for a moment, and noticed Naruto's hair fall over his eyes. Naruto? Kushina said softly, only to see his head fly back. He let out a shout of pain while holding his leg and jumping up and down. Haruo fell to the ground laughing as Kushina quickly ran to Naruto's side. It's Bamboo Kid, what were you thinking? Haruo exclaimed in between his laughter, only to hear a chuckle at his side. I was thinking about making a shadow clone and trick you both. Haruo was on his feet in a blur and managed to block the piece of bamboo in one of Naruto's hands, but watched as the other came towards his ribs. Kushina noticed this, and before the attack landed she used the length of her staff and pushed her father out of harm's way before spinning the weapon behind her back and bringing it down on Naruto, who crossed his shorter weapons to block the blow. Not bad, Haruo said while standing and dusting his pants off. You used our feelings and attitudes against us. Smart kid, he explained while watching his daughter raise her spear and smile. Naruto fell to the ground, rubbing his leg and smiling at them, only to be interrupted by the roar of his stomach. Someone's hungry, Kushina said, smiling down at Naruto, who blushed slightly before shaking his head. He still hadn't completely warmed up to them, but getting attacked by the same people for 2 whole months made it hard to play tough guy. Kushina, speaking of hunger, caused Haruo's eye to twitch slightly before his stomach also exploded in a fit for food. Well, we should head back then, he said, smiling as he thought about his daughter's great cooking. Naruto felt like laughing but stopped while feeling his body throb in pain. He went limp for a moment, only to feel Kushina catch him and pull the boy onto her back. I am fine, I can walk, he said, only to see her shake her head in refusal. Stop the stubborn act or I'll give the old man half your meal, she said, quickly earning a groan from Naruto. He relaxed and allowed her to lift him and continue walking. He didn't want to miss his chance of a good meal. The meal was devoured in what seemed like an instant. Haruo and Naruto let out satisfied sighs and leaned back in their chairs. Kushina smiled at them and started picking up the dishes and cleaning things up. If you're done, Naruto, go take a bath. We have another long day tomorrow, so get some rest, she said before walking from the room. Naruto said nothing while standing and patting his satisfied stomach. He was warming up to them, but from day one he fell in love with her cooking. Kiddo, Haruo said while opening one of his eyes slightly looking over at him. By the way, I remember you talking about a woman named Kurenai. Yeah, Naruto said softly. His eyes dimmed and his shoulders dropped slightly. She was hurt because of me. Well, Haruo said while smirking, she's alright. She made it back to the village, and I was told she's even been on a few missions. Naruto's eyes lit up as he felt a huge weight lift from his shoulders and jumped into the air with joy for the women. But suddenly he stopped. But she thinks I'm dead too. Haruo sat up slightly while looking into the boy's blue eyes. Remember, kiddo, it's all the more reason for you to train your hardest. When she sees you again, not only will she be happy, but she'll be proud. Same goes for me and your mother, Haruo said before placing his hand on Naruto's head and ruffling his hair a bit. Now go take a bath and get some rest. Training will get harder tomorrow, and we will be starting earlier. Naruto nodded before running from the room and down the hallway. Little did they know Kushina stood at the corner listening. Her hands gripped her shirt tightly while she bit her lip slightly. Jealous? What's wrong with me? She screamed at herself. I'm an idiot, she mumbled only before hearing her father clear his throat. Calm down, dear, he said softly only to see her shake her head. I'm jealous of Kurenai of all things, but I really should be thankful instead, she said quickly. You could hear the cracking of her voice as tears threatened to break free from her eyes. It's not jealousy, child. You're blaming yourself, and until you can grow up and stop living in the past, then you'll only end up pushing both your son and everyone else away, Haruo said while raising his tone. This is not you, Kushina. You think I don't know that? She yelled at her father before pushing him backwards. His eyes were wide in shock as he stared at her, unable to say anything. But I can't stop thinking about what I've done. Then stop thinking about it, a voice came from down the hall. They both looked to see Naruto standing in his shorts only. Kurenai-san was like my mommy, she took care of me like a mother should. But Naruto paused while looking to the ground and blushing a bit. I know you're my mom and I know that you love me, so there's no need for you to keep crying, okay? Mom. Naruto stood looking up at the two and could see the shock in their eyes as they simply stared back at him. Haruo held a soft smile on his face as he watched his daughter and grandson. Her eyes were wide and swollen with tears as she took several small steps towards the blonde child, where she then fell to her knees in front of him. Gently she kissed Naruto's forehead gently before wrapping her arms around the child tightly. His arms crawled around her neck as she began to cry softly. I'm sorry, she whispered again only to feel another pair of arms wrap around the both of them. The child already forgave you, dear, just like Minato did. Haruo's words were clear and soothing to Naruto and Kushina as they all held each other closely. Naruto felt his body relax as he closed his eyes slightly. This was a real family, it was his real family. 2 years later, Naruto age 8, almost 9, Mei age 9, almost 10, Naruto's heart pounded as he stood across from his mother, who was bent down holding her long halberd tightly. In his right hand was a sword twice as long as his body, a Masamune katana, and in the other was a short wakizashi. Stay calm, Naruto, he thought to himself while observing his surroundings. He knew the woman before him was a water clone, and he needed to find the real body before he planned any further. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath through his nostrils. The rich air filled his lungs with humidity and a sweet aroma of flowers. That's it, Naruto said to himself while opening his eyes. He gripped the hilt of his wakizashi and slung the blade to his right. As it shot through the bushes, a figure jumped into the air. Naruto looked up to see Kushina holding her spear above her head as she fell to the earth. Naruto sheathed his Masamune and made a few hand signs. Shadow Clone Jutsu, he yelled. Instantly 3 clones appeared at his side and charged at his mother's water clone to make sure it wouldn't interfere. He placed his hand on the hilt of the blade on his back and smiled. He wasn't very good at the technique with the Masamune, but since he slung his wakizashi into the woods, it was his only choice. Come on! Naruto yelled while pushing chakra into his legs. Kushina tightened her jaw while looking into Naruto's eyes. Their determination met before their blades did, and in a flash they both passed each other in the air and fell to the ground, landing softly. Naruto stood with his bangs over his eyes silently as Kushina turned to face him. The sound of metal hitting the ground filled the air as Naruto raised his hand to see his once long katana shattered and laying at his feet. Blood shot from his right arm. He let out a shout before falling to a knee and gripping the wound. And Naruto! Kushina yelled while lowering her guard and running to his aid. Haruo sat in a tree in the distance, and shook his head just like last time, he said to himself. Kushina reached Naruto's side only to see the boy turn and smile at her. Her eyes grew round as cold steel touched her neck. She cut her eyes to the right to see Naruto smiling at her. His right arm was bleeding badly, but he paid it no mind. Gotcha again, Mom, he said smugly only to see her return the smile. Oh, did you now? Naruto's eyes grew round as water began to drip from her neck and down the wakizashi and up his arm. He watched her body turn to water before it latched onto his body, creating a sphere around him. It was over. You shouldn't do that to me, Naruto, Kushina yelled while stepping from the bushes. It's not right to use your mother's emotions in a fight, she yelled to the orb. Inside of it, Naruto held his breath as he crossed his arms and turned his head. Well, it's not exactly an even fight, Haruo said while walking from the bushes, and dear, you should release the jutsu or you might actually kill him. Kushina let out a yelp while looking over to Naruto, who sat with both his legs and arms crossed in the water. She noticed his eye twitch slightly in her direction as bubbles shot from his mouth and nose. The water fell to the ground, leaving a panting Naruto and a laughing Haruo. I'm so sorry, Kushina yelled while patting Naruto on the back as he coughed for breath. All right then, Haruo said while his laughter died down. Naruto stood slowly nursing his arm to see Haruo looking down at the shattered weapon. To think it lasted that long, he said. It seemed like he was talking to himself before he looked back up at Naruto. Kushina, we're going into town. Bandage his arm, we'll be back by nightfall. Naruto walked through the streets of the town as it grew darker and darker with every minute. The sun began to hide behind the horizon, lighting the ocean with its many wonderful colors which bounced off the mist surrounding the village, giving everything a warm tone. The twilight hours suited Naruto's new home better than any other place he knew.